Yeah, that's nuts. Yeah, your kids go to Chelsea. I forget that. I always think your kids go to Dexter.
So I emailed the road commission. It was like, hey, why?
Yeah.
Why did we?
Well, I think they said because they don't always think in a system-wide way about the road closures. That's what I was.
They were waiting on materials, is what I said. But then they did this other one, and that's one of the other routes, not the way we go, but from the opposite direction. So now those folks who come from that direction have to do 2 detours to get
If
to
you email the local roads committee at DexterTownship.org, it also goes to the road commission.
Yeah.
I emailed. There was a person on the job in the email.
I think we should just go. We've got a very full agenda tonight, so we're waiting for Janice. I'm going to get started with the meeting. Yeah, I know.
We're live right now?
Okay, so I'm calling this meeting to order of the Dexter Township Board of Trustees. It's 6 o'clock on...
Oh, okay. I was going to say, what?
It's 6 o'clock on September 19th, 2023. We have one of our trustees is not here yet. Karen Nolte is absent with permission, but I'm going to go ahead and get started because we have a full agenda and a lot of members of the public here. So I'll start with a roll call. Lonnie Scott?
Here.
Mara Smets?
Here.
Michelle Stambalales?
Present.
Gretchen Driscoll?
Yes, here.
Karen Nolte is absent with permission. I think Laura Sanders will be here shortly, and myself, Karen Sickinga, present. So do any members of the board have a conflict of interest with any of the items on the agenda tonight?
No.
No.
Okay,
No.
Great. Okay, now, although the approval of the agenda is after the call for public comment, I think there are members of the public here tonight, and can you guys raise your hand if this is true? The way we organize the agenda is we ask for public comment on agenda items at the top of the meeting, and then non-agenda items at the bottom of the meeting, at the end of the meeting. Are there members of the public here specifically to talk about an item that is not on the agenda? If so, will you raise your hands? So board members, do we want to allow these people to speak up front so that they don't have to remain for the whole meeting, or do we want to stick with the agenda as planned?
I personally think that we should let them speak.
Okay.
Yeah, that way they don't have to sit here for the entire meeting, if you don't want to. So.
And so is there agreement on that we'll change that and allow members of the public to speak to any matter right now?
With a time limit?
With a 3-minute time limit.
Are they all here on the same subject?
Yes, and can I ask, if you're all here on the same subject, can you choose a single representative to speak on your behalf so that we can move through that pretty quickly, and then if others want to add to it, we can do that at the end? Okay. All right, so then with that in mind, let's begin with the call for public comment. Please state your name and address for the record, and comments are limited to 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Lisa Stahl. I'm in the Glenbrook Beach Association. My address is 9601 Lakeview Drive, and my neighbors and I are here for a Tom Pro's property in our association. I don't have his address.
That's okay.
I assume you all know the property. I don't know if you knew he actually tore down the house today.
Oh.
So it's laying down on the ground. Our concern now is we're tickled that he tore it down because it's been there for 10 years. It was condemned, it's condemned. Now we're concerned that he's going to leave it the condition it is in now for another 10 years. Does the township have anything to do about that? I mean, we can wait and see if he's going to pick it up. But that's not usually who he is.
Okay.
So what do we do to make sure that he cleans his lot up?
Okay.
It's still a health hazard. It's still got creatures all around it, it's just flattened now on the ground.
Okay. Well, to be clear, this isn't a question and answer, so what we'll do, we'll take note of your questions and we'll communicate back to you. And I myself have heard from some of you individually, and so we'll just be sure to circle back and communicate with you. It's good to know that at least the next step is taken, and we'll look into what happens next.
Yeah, because we weren't sure if you had done it or if he had done it, but we're probably under the assumption that he did it.
No, we didn't do it,
No, you
yes,
guys
yes,
didn't
we did not do it,
Okay.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you could leave on the sign-in sheet a telephone number and/or email so someone can get back with you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
Can anybody else speak? My name is Anne Courtney. I live at 9405 Lakeview Drive. And my concern is this. We have waited years for something to be done about this property. It's damaged our housing values. It's because of health concerns of people going in there, of children going in there. And you know, when I come here and I hear we'll discuss it and do something about it, well, you haven't. And you haven't done that for at least a decade. And so I know that I am disappointed in the response, which might be your response. But what are we going to do about this? He's taken the property down. There was no sign of taking the materials away. Are we going to have this for another decade? We're concerned about the township's lack of action on the whole issue that we have lived with and passed daily. So where is the action going to happen? When are we going to get anything done about this property?
Okay, we're noting your questions.
Yeah,
and
you should know the quavering in my voice, because I am really concerned that nothing is going to happen and we're going to sit there again with the old responses to this man that we all know is creating a lot of problems for us, has created a lot of problems for us, and has cost us a lot of money. And here he is again in our lives, taking an action that we don't really know what it's all about, whether he's going to leave this debris, because that's what it is. He's taken what was the house materials and he's just put it in another place.
Okay, ma'am, so that's your 3 minutes. Your
Okay.
3 minutes is up, and I appreciate the feedback, and we will be following up with you on that. Thank you.
Hello. My name is Kevin Warner. I just want to take a minute to introduce myself to the board. Yesterday I sent out an email letter to you folks. Apologize because my computer is down. I was using my son's laptop, so I ended up on his Gmail instead of my Gmail account. But at any rate, I recently participated for the hiring process for Ordinance Enforcement Officer. Very disappointed I wasn't selected. I've lived here in Dexter Township for 22 years. My father, Robin Warner, and stepmom, Helen Welford, have been here well over 30 years. And I share property with them there on Dexter Town Hall Road. But with that said, I just really would like to say that I look forward to any future opportunities that may come about here with local government. I did retire from a 35-year career in law enforcement, most recently with the city of Ann Arbor. So I'm just looking to obviously give back to my community. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other members of the public who would like to speak? Okay, then we'll move on to approval of the agenda.
So I'm new at this, and this is excuse me, I don't know if this is appropriate, but I'm going to just say it. And it may not be appropriate, but maybe we could have a neighborhood meeting or some kind of history, because I know some of us are relatively new to your whole experience.
Well, I would say that this matter, like, it's new to
Yeah.
me too in the
Yeah.
last few days,
I've
and
never
so
heard
we
about
don't,
it.
so we don't know any, so we're
So-
looking into it now, and we've got our planners looking at the zoning ordinance, and we've checked in with council, but we don't really know, we just don't, so I think the complaints don't really pertain to us.
But they don't know that.
So we're in an investigation
So
phase.
if you could bear with us, we're trying to figure out the history. I think we'll probably try to keep you updated. But we're all kind of like, I'm like, what are
We
you
don't know
talking
anything about what
This is the
what
first
this-
I've heard
yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
Right, are you addressing us?
Well, we don't, this is really
Not
not a
supposed
debate,
to.
because we do have a business meeting that we need to
Right.
have, but.
We just
I
want you to
didn't
know, we want you to know that we're looking into it and following up on
I
it.
realize that, but we've waited decades for something to be done about this.
We heard you loud and clear.
And
Yeah.
we've heard you, and thank you for coming to address this here, because many of us don't know, but now we do.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Well, and you have a spokesperson signed in, right, that will share the information.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I've been emailing them too, so, anyway.
Okay, next, just say that, because I didn't know that. We didn't know. Anyhow.
Fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I just found out about this not long ago.
Okay, approval of the agenda. Just a reminder to everybody that if there are consent agenda items you want to move off the consent agenda, you can do that.
And would I do that now?
Yes, you would ask to move items off the consent agenda.
Or would we do that now?
Anybody? Okay, so hearing no requests, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll move it. I will move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Are we approving the agenda or the
We're
consent?
approving the agenda.
The consent agenda.
Did we already approve the agenda?
There's only one approval of the agenda, and it includes the consent agenda and the overall agenda. So I'm just reminding people that the consent, so the consent agenda is new to this
All right,
board.
right, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so this board is, we
So that's
haven't,
automatic motion under 5.
right, and
Yeah,
so
okay.
we haven't historically had a consent agenda until I took over, and some board members don't know that it's okay to move items off the consent agenda.
I see.
But, so I'm just making a reminder, which I think you already know because you've had a lot of experience. Yeah.
Okay.
So the agenda is approved. So then we'll move on to the consent agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed?
Who seconded that?
Laura.
Laura?
Okay.
Nothing. You can reference me for that, but that's okay. Nothing.
What's happening?
That's what I was just going to say. What's going on?
Okay, so the consent agenda is approved. That means everything on the consent, that means that we all approved everything that's on
A
the
through
consent
E.
agenda. 5A through 5E, right?
Yes.
Okay, so now we're moving on to the action items. So we're going to start with authorizing the supervisor to sign an agreement with Carlisle Wortman as the contracted planner for Dexter Township, and this is Megan Masson-Minnock, who's a principal with Carlisle Wortman. And Megan, do you want to just come up for a minute and introduce yourself?
Thank you for the introduction. It's our pleasure to be here. I'm a principal at Carlisle Wortman Associates and have been working in planning consulting since 2000. I'm delighted to have the possibility to work with Dexter Township because you're right next door. I live in Scioto Township. My family and I are planning to move to the city of Dexter in the next year or so. And also our offices are in Arbor. And we represent multiple municipalities throughout Washtenaw County. And so any opportunity to work with the Washtenaw County municipality is absolutely welcome. And then also a lot of your priorities dovetail with interests and specialties that I have in particular, such as community engagement and food systems. I'd be happy to answer any questions about our firm or my background, but just want to thank you for the opportunity.
And I just wanted to take a minute. Can I mention the house that you donated to the, now that I've already mentioned it?
Of course.
So Megan has actually purchased a house in Dexter that is a tear down, and she's donated that house to the Dexter Area Fire Department for them to do. So I heard about that house at the last DAFD board meeting and didn't realize that Megan was the donor of that house. So thank you for that donation. That's awesome. And then just a reminder to the board, we have been working with temporary with a temporary situation since about the end of June. I think it was at the July board meeting, you all approved my request that we move from a staff planner to a contracted planner. The time that we've had since that, since July when that decision was made, has made me feel really good about that decision, honestly, because both because I think because we've been working with OHM for our planner, and then we've had a temporary zoning officer with a planning background, and having the depth of the firm behind the contracted planner has been very beneficial to us, so we can tap into all that expertise, and we also, in some sense, we share some liability with them, so they're offering their expertise, and they have our back. And then our temporary zoning officer has a planning background, and so that person has stepped in to do a lot of the permit processing, and she's been here 24 hours, with us 24 hours a week. She did not apply for the zoning officer position, but the two of them have been working together and really bringing to our attention points in the zoning ordinance that could be improved in a future audit to help serve the citizens a little bit better. And so we're starting to frame issues with planning and zoning in a policy way, and I'm excited that we have staff in place that can do that. And now, so part of our decision with the zoning officer was to bring in Ashley Sapita. Ashley, do you want to step up just for a minute?
Okay.
You all don't have the authority, we have the authority as the executive team to make the offer for authorized positions, but Ashley very kindly just offered to come in and be introduced to you. So this is our team, this is our planning and zoning team. And we did decide, because the method that we're using right now has been so successful, to go with a person that had a planning background. So Ashley is actually a planner, but she's our zoning officer, and then Megan, a higher level principal at Carlisle Wortman. And so Ashley will be here day to day, but when she's on vacation or if she gets swamped with permits, Carlisle Wortman has young planners, wouldn't be Megan, but people that can step in and help, either us get caught up on workload or cover for Ashley when she's on vacation or whatever. So and we've got this very strong existing team, and so our plan is to have these four wonderful people get together and have that old team sort of pass along these thoughts and comments that they have on our zoning ordinance.
And I will say my planning experience was at a different consulting firm, but I have worked in other capacities with Carlisle Wortman and have nothing but positive things to say about their firm and the people there. So very excited that you guys went in that direction.
Yeah. So does anybody have any questions for me or for these two with respect to this decision? Great. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Motion
Thank you.
to approve the contract.
Yes. So, well, yes.
Is it too late for me to make a comment on the consent agenda? I know that we've approved it already.
Let's
We
not.
can't, right?
Well, let's finish this.
Okay.
Why don't you go back to that when
Yeah,
we
that's fine.
ask for comments from the
Sure.
board at the end?
Yeah.
So for now, why don't I hear if there's a motion to authorize the supervisor to sign an agreement with Carlisle Wortman as the contracted planner for Dexter Township?
So moved.
Second? Matts?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great. I should have asked if there was any discussion, but I kind of think we kind of got to that first. So. Okay, so next thing, I did put, so the next item on the agenda is the personnel-related items, and I decided, I kind of went back and forth. I moved the action items to the front of the agenda so that Megan and Ashley wouldn't have to stay for the whole meeting. So if you guys want to go home to your families, feel free to do that. We really appreciate that you came tonight. Yeah. And typically, we would have the discussion items first, followed by the action items. So in this case, I did put the discussion of the personnel policy ahead of embedded into the action items because we have this motion to approve a salary range, a couple of personnel-specific items that kind of derive from the discussion items. So I wanted to start just by noting that we have this revised personnel policy, which Lonnie put quite a bit of time into. Sinead had not Sinead herself, I think, but the personnel experts at Bodman. And so we came to you guys last month with basically the old personnel policy with very minimal updates, and now it's had a more comprehensive revision. And so I wanted to find out if you all read it and if you had any questions or comments on it. And the plan is to come to you next month with this for approval. And so I want to take care of any questions that you have before I bring it to you for approval next month.
I didn't have a question. I thought it was really thorough,
Yeah.
so I didn't have a question on the personnel policy.
So, wait a minute. What page, can
So
you,
we are on page, of the
48?
overall agenda, it's 43, it's page 43 of the
I
packet.
want to see if we had questions about it.
if we had questions about it?
Yeah.
Okay, I did. I have a question
Okay,
about it.
let's hear your question.
I wondered if I didn't see any, I read it, and maybe I missed it, but I thought I read it pretty thoroughly. I didn't see anything about like acceptable use of social media. And I was wondering if that could be a part of this, because I think it's really easy for people to talk about what's going on at the township over social media. I don't know if it's I hope it would be something that we would be enforcing not only for staff, but also for elected officials, but like our care about discussing Dexter Township politics over social media.
I think it's a good,
It's gotten us in trouble in the past, and I'd like to know if that's a part of this, or if this is an appropriate place for that.
I think so.
I think that it
Yeah,
would be.
I mean, I don't think, the personnel guidelines don't pertain to elected officials, so that is in the bylaws.
Right.
And so,
Would you like me to check with Bodman and see if we have sample language for something like this, for a personnel
Yeah.
policy? Because I can check with our employment experts.
and we can also look at adding it to the bylaws
Right.
too.
Yeah, I mean, I think it should be everybody. I don't think it should just be for the staff, And maybe we need to approve it,
Can you say more about what you mean, Laura? Like, you mean using social media for an employee while they're here, or you mean what they're saying?
What they're saying about working at Dexter, about the issues that come to our attention at Dexter Township over social media.
I would just say that we have to be careful with a policy like that and in violating folks' First Amendment rights.
I agree, and that's why I'm saying I think it's sticky.
I do think that there is provisions within this policy that prevent folks from sharing things like confidential information, using township resources to do political posts or those kinds of things, which I know have been questions in the past. But I would think, I mean, maybe if there is guidance, but I at least would want to make sure that it's in line with allowing people, I mean, if you're an employee here, obviously our goal is that they don't have negative things to say, but I don't know how much we can control that on social media beyond the pieces of making sure they're not disclosing confidential information of township residents or concerns that they may hear through the course of their job. So I would just have to see it, I guess.
Yeah, we do have a section on a workplace based on teamwork and respect too, so I'll take a look at that, but I would like to see if there is any guidance.
Absolutely.
Well, like, for example, what if somebody is really angry, for example, about something that went on at work here? Is it okay for them to take that to Facebook, to post about that on Facebook or on Friends of Dexter or these different, neighborhood forums?
Well, I mean, I know the University of Michigan, where you work and where I work for a long time, doesn't try to control speech in that way. So I agree with Lonnie that it can be a little bit.
I think it's something to do with the factual, I think if there's a policy, no?
Well, I think, and I'm not an employment attorney, but I think, it touches on, as you said, the First Amendment. It would touch on, were they at work when they made the statement? Were they, at home? Was it a public page? Was it a private page? I think we'd really want, my recommendation would be you'd really want to have somebody who has a lot of experience crafting these kind of policies come up with it for you, because it can kind of, the facts of each situation, can be so different.
Right.
It can trigger, important rights that, I don't think you want to infringe on. So that would be my strong recommendation, that we can talk to Rebecca Seguin at Bodman, see if she has any insight.
So we could ask the question and keep it open and look at something.
That would be my recommendation.
Okay.
And we could do the same for the bylaws, if you
Right.
want. Yeah.
Right, I don't think it should just be it should be for everyone, I think.
Yeah.
If there is something, and I agree with that, I agree with the concerns. I like freedom too.
Did you have other questions about the person?
I did not understand really what bondable status is.
What page are you?
Page 49.
Oh, but I'm bonded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the
that-
treasurer bonded. Michelle's bonded, we're bonded.
Protection for the township.
It's extra insurance, basically.
Oh,
for
I see.
people that are handling legal matters or money.
Yeah, I had to do that, I think I had to do that within the first year. I submit my paperwork, and I think I'm covered for this term. But yeah.
Okay.
It's
I can
very
note that.
important for the financial, me and Michelle, yeah, so, yep. Does that answer your question, Laura?
Kind of.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that I don't, it's not my area of expertise.
Yeah.
So it's part of our yearly premium with our insurance company, Decker.
Okay.
That we pay a separate policy to bond us just in case of error or,
Okay.
Fire,
Yeah.
or damage,
Yeah.
or for monies,
yep.
you never know.
I also, I wondered, several times during the, reading about the Disability, Americans with Disability Act policy on 50, it says a couple of times accommodations that do not pose an undue hardship. And that seems so vague to me, like I'm not quite sure what an undue hardship is.
I think that's the language from the ADA. So we're just mirroring the language of the ADA, and I mean, you can speak to this better than I can, Sinead, but I think I think you have to decide on a case-by-case basis,
Okay.
based on legal advice, what, if someone's asking for an accommodation that you're finding difficult to accommodate.
Right, whether
you
it's-
talk to your lawyer and say, do I have to accommodate this, and get an opinion.
Okay. Could said a couple of times. And then the last one, I think it's the last, well, maybe it had more. I thought that paid leave should extend through an entire stay on a jury, because I feel like if somebody is called to a jury and we can't, and that they have to do it. It's a government, assigned thing. You know. What do we do? What happens if somebody has to do that?
If you have in your policy that they can be paid indefinitely on a jury, then, I mean, if you go to a jury, if you get called up for a jury and you say, I can't serve on this 9-month-long trial or this 2-year-long trial because I have a job and I only have 5 days of paid jury, then they can dismiss you from jury duty. But if we just have an open-ended, you're covered as long as you want, then we're at risk of our employees having to serve on very long trials. It would be completely out of, no employer pays for indefinite jury duty. I mean, some trials can go on for years. And we just can't support that. We don't have the resources to support that.
Okay.
And
so that's a standard.
And people get excused from serving on juries because of financial, because of.
They can be relieved of it.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I mean, I would call that a legal question too, for you maybe, or if you have a different opinion, but
No, I think that's right. I mean, I think this is our general recommendation, that 5 days, in my experience, that would cover most circumstances.
Most jury.
I think, it would be the rare circumstance that a trial is going, for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, or something like that. It's not uncommon for a trial to be, a couple days long.
And I think the old, Lonnie, didn't the old policy have no?
It was not paid at all.
So we added the paid jury duty, so that was.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the last thing that I noted was on page 60 under safety. I was just wondering if this training around, if there's a training around the locations and the use of first aid equipment and firefighting equipment, when people come in, do we orient them to that? Like, where is the first aid kit? Where's the how do you do what do you do in case of fire? It's on under safety. Mm-hmm. Number 4, it says know the locations, contents, and use of first aid and firefighting equipment. Do we do any of that orientation?
I'll leave that to you guys because I have not oriented any staff, but I know that Sam, and I can speak for Sam and I who were new, we reorganized, we cleaned things up and pulled out the safety equipment and put it in a very clear location, and now it's really easy to find and see.
Yeah. I just want to suggest that we build it into any orientation for any new person. I know I have to do that on our farm, to make sure people know what where the fire extinguishers are and stuff like that, if they're going to help us on our farm, and where the first aid kit is. Of course, probably likely to get hurt on a farm more than here in the office, but still.
You never know.
I'm looking at Ashley because I'm thinking, so we'll be sure to orient you to that.
Yeah, and I think that's, I've got there's a few other things, but I think that's fine. Whenever I'm asked to read something really thoroughly, I do.
Well, if you have small things that are more like typos or whatever that don't need to be asked in public, you can send them to me and I can.
Yeah, no, I have a few things that I don't really understand, but I don't want to take up the time of the board. And my biggest question was about the social media, and I have really mixed feelings about that.
Yeah.
So, but otherwise, I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thought it was great. Yeah, thank you for everyone who worked hard on this.
So we'll come back next month with at least some information about a section on social media, and it sounds like that's going to be a policy decision for the board to make, whether we want to include it or not.
And is this, once it's revised, is this something that everybody's going to sign then too, or no? Is that not required?
It's in here,
we would have
page 66.
That we've acknowledged and that we've read it?
When I took
But it
office,
would-
I had
this-
everyone sign.
this-
So when we,
I remember.
But this is not for elected officials, this is for staff.
For the staff, right? No, I mean, that's what I meant, like when we get new hires or whatnot.
Yeah,
okay.
and even our existing staff will
Yeah,
probably.
have to do the revision.
Because this is a new policy.
Correct, okay.
And I don't know that the old, I don't think we knew that there was an old policy, so I don't know that people signed it.
Yeah, we did.
They signed it.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else to discuss on that, or can we move on to the action items then? So we'll move on then to action item 6B2, which is really setting, so we made a decision when we set the budget last year to allocate $20,000 for an office assistant, but we neglected to include the office assistant's pay in the annual salary ordinance. And so now we're trying to hire an office assistant and realizing we don't have a salary authorization. And the reason what is different about this than what is in the salary ordinance now is that I'm asking for a pay range instead of a specific pay. So the way the salary ordinance, the existing ordinance reads is it's just the office manager makes a specific dollar amount and the zoning officer makes a specific dollar amount. Next year, we're going to be, I hope that you all will agree that instead of having a specific pay, we'll have a pay range for each position. And so I'm asking to start that now with a pay range for the office assistant, and then that gives us latitude to negotiate appropriate pay based on what they're earning now in the market and all of that. And the top of that range is affordable within the budget allocation that we have now. So, can I hear a motion to approve a salary range for an office assistant?
Are we going to put a range number on that, or are we going to discuss it?
Well, let's, yes, there is a range.
Okay.
So let's hear a motion and then a second.
Yep, I'll move to approve a salary range for an office assistant.
And do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
And in answer to your question, the range I'm proposing is $16 to $20 an hour.
Okay.
There's a lot of, I know there were a lot of words in
Yeah.
the package this month. And that was based on a quick
I thought that's what we
benchmark study, yeah,
okay.
so for
So
example.
sorry, 16 to,
20.
So why are we not, so in the sentence above, Karen, it says 18 to 20. Why are we going down to 16 for the bottom of the range?
Well, because that's I called around a few places to find out what people are paying for this position, and they're paying $16 to $20 an hour.
And I think it's probably maybe has to do with a little bit of a reevaluation of responsibilities and duties, that
Well,
we're dividing those up differently.
Well, we're not lowering, we've never had a range for this position.
Right, I
so
know,
this is
I
new.
know. I just
Yeah.
wondered, well, see, I guess I'm confused by, it says based on a half-time, the first sentence says based on a half-time position at $18 to $20 an hour. And then the range is 16 to 20.
Oh.
I just wondered why we don't just say 18 to 20.
Oh, well, we could do that, it's just a smaller range. So
Right.
it gives us less flexibility.
Right.
And I think when we approved it as a board, we didn't have any data. We were just throwing numbers around and thinking,
Okay.
oh, well, we pay these people that much, so yeah, 18 to 20, that seems about right. And then I talked to Kim Haynes, who's asked her what she pays, and I talked to somebody at Webster Township, it doesn't matter who I talked to, but I talked to a few local employers, and it's like, yeah, 16 to 20 seemed doable, and that's what we advertised. I went ahead and advertised it at that, and we got 18 responses or something, so that tells me that it's an appropriate range to attract candidates.
And I think we have to have a range dependent on, because we weren't sure at that time also, the caliber of people that were going to be applying and, the level of experience.
Level of
So say
schooling.
we just, we got a handful of people with not a whole lot of experience.
that's brand new.
16 would probably be fair versus somebody that came in with 20 years of clerical experience. And of course, then we have that flexibility.
We got and I made a note in case you guys were interested, we received 12 qualified applicants, and we got 7 unqualified applicants, and that's because in the past, this is the first time we've, well, for the zoning officer position and for this position, we've started to advertise on Indeed. In the past, we just advertised on the Webster Township homepage, and so when you advertise on Indeed, you will often get some unqualified applicants, and Maris tells me it's because people that have unemployment have to apply for a certain number of positions, so they just will apply for everything. So we sorted them into qualified and unqualified, but there were 12 qualified applicants. So that said to me, it's fine pay. What do you think?
Okay. It just seems like 16 is hard to get by on these days with all of the inflation and everything. Just want to be able to keep somebody, you know.
Yeah. I mean, we're not aiming to pay somebody $16 an hour.
Yeah.
We hope not anyways. I
Right.
mean, you just kind of have to have a range, and because you don't know who's going to apply. You just don't know the circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
It's just merely a range. But that's not what we're aiming for, I don't think. I hope not, anyway.
Other questions? Okay, so then I'll put it to a vote, and I'll start on the other side this time. So Laura Sanders?
Yes. Yes.
Gretchen Driscoll? Yes. Michelle Stamoulis?
Yes.
Mara Smith?
Yes.
Lonnie Scott?
Yes.
Myself, Karen Sickinga, yes. Okay, so then we're going to move on to the motion to approve an employee benefits package. This is something that has come up many times over the last couple of years, and so I've done some benchmarking again and come up, and I'll be honest with you, I started by trying to benchmark with other townships, and they're so all over the board that I couldn't use it. I couldn't use the data as a benchmark. So I decided again, instead, to look to the University of Michigan and the state of Michigan, which are large public sector employers. So those were the 2 primary data sources that I used. And as a point of order, Janice, should I ask for a motion first and then go into what the benefits are, or should I do an introduction?
You can do an introduction, I think.
Okay. So I'm proposing basically three benefits. First, healthcare benefits. That's been a real sticking point for us because we can't set up a plan because right now we only have one potential member. When we get our new staff, we're going to have 2 new staff people. We may have 2 or 3 members. If we have 2 or 3 members, then we could potentially have a plan. But right now we only have 1 member, and that proved to be pretty challenging because the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, is structured to try to force employers to have a plan. So they really want to discourage you from providing just a subsidy in lieu of a plan. So I've got advice from Bodman basically, and it seems like the approach that we can take is to provide it's a payment. So the employees they will receive a payment for to pay their health insurance premium, and I'm still talking with the Bodman attorney about whether that's going to be a pre-tax or a post-tax payment. And then also, in the interest of simplicity, because I think you guys all know that this has been a very knotty problem for us, I just said, let's get it started. We will not, I'm proposing this, what is it, $648 a month, I think, and it's based on what it costs for a single person to obtain a health insurance policy. And I'm not trying to get into, well, what if they have dependents and a spouse and all that? Because I figure a starting point, we'll start with this and then we'll have the ball rolling. When we add these new staff, if I find that there are staff members that actually need a plan, then I might be coming back and asking for a change, because then we might actually be able to get a plan, and then we'll be using a different approach. And this $648 a month is basically, health insurance plans that are offered by employers are very complex, and so I basically just looked at what it would cost to get a good basic coverage from the health place market, for a single person from the marketplace, and this is enough to cover that. So, or it's enough to cover 90% of it or something. So I just thought, let's get it started, and then we can improve from this point on. I am proposing a 5% defined contribution to MERS with a 2.5% required match from the employee, which is half of what the University of Michigan offers, but almost twice what the state of Michigan offers. So it seemed like a nice compromise. Sam is my guinea pig, so I asked her, is this package acceptable to her? And she was pleased with the package because it's a little bit more generous than what she has now. And then the paid time off, which includes sick and vacation time, was set at 8 hours a month, and that was it for full-time employees, so you didn't accumulate more with longevity. And that was less than both the state of Michigan and the University of Michigan. So, and again, just a reminder that this is for sick time and vacation time, so it was not I didn't feel it was a very generous policy, and so I'm proposing that after 2 years, people go up to 12 hours per month, and then after 4 years, 16 hours per month. So with that, do I have a motion to approve this proposed benefits package?
Move to approve the employee benefits packages specified.
And do I have a second?
Met second.
Okay, any discussion or any questions?
I do. So I just want to make sure I understand it. The idea is that we are going to give people a chunk of cash, basically, and they have to get their health insurance. Do they have to show that they are spending it on health insurance?
Yes, they do.
And that they have health insurance? Okay.
Yes, yep. And we have not figured out, and this is something for Michelle and I have to figure out, how are we actually going to do this? And but what we're doing now, what we're doing now is paying the health insurance premium on behalf of the employees, and apparently we shouldn't be doing that.
Can they use it, if they already have like a partial plan or something, can they use it for a dependent? It kind of bothers me that, like, if I was a single mom, I would want to be able to cover my kid. So, I realize that maybe we can't do that, but could they is there flexibility as to how they use that within their family?
That's a good question.
I mean, we could provide.
Thank you.
We could provide flexibility to use it for themselves or their immediate family members.
I thought it says in here that employees who do not require health insurance will receive $100 a month.
Yeah.
So
That was for that was if you're covered, that the intention there is if you're covered by your spouse's plan.
to her comment,
Yeah.
that would go for the kid.
That could go for the kid,
What, $100 a month?
if they don't, yeah.
That's not.
I mean,
gonna cut
Laura,
the mustard.
your question, you realize again, and I've told you this before, our capacity is very limited. We are you're working for the University of Michigan. This is a very, very small entity. So any requirements or complexity that we add is going to need to be administered, and that's going to mean we don't have an HR team. We don't have,
I understand.
So I get what you're trying to get at. And I think in the ideal world, we would have a plan, and we'd offer that plan. And, right, and people would participate in our plan, but if we don't, right now, we only have one employee.
That needs
it, and that employee doesn't have a family, she doesn't, and so if
I know, but like if she did, like I'm just wondering if there could be some way to negotiate or flexibility.
What I would ask is that you just approve this, and then if we get an employee that needs more, we can come back to the board and change the plan. Because if we had an employee with a kid, that would be 2 people, and that would be enough to get a plan. But if we only have one participant, we can't have an employer plan with only one participant.
Okay. Thanks for helping me understand it. I mean, I'm going to ask all my questions.
No, I want you to ask the questions.
Okay, because, probably everybody, more people might have.
Yeah. Well, that too, and I mean, and it's you're advocating for the well-being of our employees, which I really appreciate. And it's good questions, but this isn't carved in stone. This is just, hey, let's get this ball rolling. This is a
Right.
plan.
No, I get that.
That
I
makes
hear that.
sense for our one employee who uses the benefits, and if we have more employees that come along and it's not adequate, we can change it.
I also don't know, what does arm's length compensation committee mean? What does arm's length mean?
Well, that's
It means
that's
it's-
the next item on the agenda, so
I
let's
thought it was said in here.
let's stick with the
Okay.
motion, let's.
Well, it's on this, it's on page 79, which is a part of this motion. Down at the very bottom, it says compensation for deputies and elected officials will be considered by an arm's length compensation committee. I just want to know what that means. It means somebody, that we're not on it, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right. And,
Okay.
and we're going to talk about that in detail as the next
Okay.
agenda item. Yeah.
Okay, good.
I was trying to figure it out in my head. I don't know how to do it here. I think to Laura's point, I would love to see us come back to this before we need it to say that we support it, before there is someone who has to ask, I guess is kind of to Laura's point that we would be flexible. I think I'm fine with approving this as is, knowing that that's getting the ball rolling, but I would love to see us add some of that language, whether it be that the township supports up to, 80% of the premium or 90, whatever our intent is. I think we can write that language additionally and have it ready so that it just feels like it's putting it on the employee to have to come and say, hey, now I have a kid and this doesn't work for me, as opposed to the board being proactive and saying, we want to welcome anyone with these situations to have access to health care. I can't figure out how to do that in this, but I do think it's important that we continue the conversation.
What if we wrote something into the policy, like if we have an opportunity to create an employer-sponsored health insurance plan, it's the board's intention to pursue that?
Yeah, I think we can.
I think there's two, I think that helps, but I think that, I don't know, go ahead, Ron.
I was just going to say, I think we can keep working on it. I know we have a lot and this gets us
Something.
way better than we are right
Yeah.
now. So just that, I agree with Laura that the continued conversation is good. And I just wanted to say that I appreciate the effort that went into this, because I know you did a lot of work. And the changes that were made. I think when we were first discussing it, it looks to me like this amount is actually higher based on the reality of what those plans were, which was my question when we were working on it separately. So I just wanted to say that I appreciate you doing all of that work to make sure that we were in the realm of actually paying for someone's health care instead of just picking random numbers.
Me too.
I also wanted to say that this is going to be, so I don't know, this is going to be paid for through another budget line. So and I don't know how much detail you guys want to go into on this, but the township as a whole moved from a defined benefits plan to a defined contribution plan. And that basically means that in the past, there were pensions where people who paid into the plan knew that they would get a defined benefit when they retired. So they would get some percent of their highest pay upon retirement, they would get that amount. A defined contribution is where the contribution is defined, so it's the amount that you pay in is defined every month. And when you have a defined benefits plan, MERS has requirements about, they use actuaries to estimate what the cost is going to be to the public entity for that defined benefits plan, and then they require you to make a deposit so that you have more than that worst case scenario. But our defined benefits plan is closed, and so I was able to, I don't want to get everybody confused, but I was able to change the way we're doing that investment so that they're not charging us anymore for that defined benefits plan, and the savings from that is sufficient to support the increase in benefits. So the changes overall in what we're paying into benefits are going to be the same, but instead of us paying to build a surplus in the defined benefits plan at MERS, we're paying in real time for our current employees. So I was pretty happy about that.
And I'd like to bring up too, where I've brought up in the past several times that I am very much in favor of there being benefits for not just our staff, but potentially for the elected officials. These are large jobs that people run for, and to have a benefits package, if people have benefits, it really opens up options for people that want to run for office. And I know I've been advocating for insurance for elected officials for quite some time. So I appreciate, keeping the conversation going.
And
or if we would keep the conversation going.
Yeah. It's a great point. I
Yeah,
would
and-
benefit from having insurance too, but any other discussion on this? Okay, so there's a motion on the floor, so let's take a vote. Michelle Stamboulalis?
Yes.
Mara Smets?
Yes.
Lonnie Scott?
Yes.
Gretchen Driscoll?
Yes.
Laura Sanders?
Yes.
Myself, Karen Sickinga, yes. Okay, so now we're moving into elected officials' compensation, which is on point for what you just said, Michelle. So at the last meeting, Gretchen suggested that we have this arm's length compensation committee. That has actually been suggested in the past, so it's an item that we've brought up every year. And well, it turns out in talking with Sinead, this is almost our last opportunity, I think. And so I want to apologize. Gretchen called me, said, why are we moving so quickly on this, appointing everybody and discussing it, approving it, and then appointing all at the same time? The reason is because this arm's length compensation committee is closely defined in statute, and it meets only in odd-numbered years, and it must provide its recommendations to the board in December. And so if we want to do this is something that we've brought up, I think, every year. If we want to do it, to my mind, either we do it now or we give it a pass, and the next set of elected officials will do it. Because if we appoint them now, I've talked to these 4 folks that I've identified, and I can talk about them a little in a minute, but they will meet for the first time on October 4th, I think, and then they'll figure out their charge, they'll assign tasks to each other, they'll probably then meet again in December, they'll make some decisions and recommendations, then they'll write their report and they'll give it to us. And if we wait until October, they just aren't going to have time to do it because it's a volunteer committee. So the big policy decision is, are we moving too quickly on, do we want to do this or not? And if we want to do it, I can answer questions about it. And I think I should ask for a motion on the floor for the ordinance, and then we can talk about why we want to do this.
Second.
So moved by
Gretchen.
Driscoll, seconded by Metz. And then let's talk. And I should say, so these 4 folks that I have identified, 3 of them one of them is an HR, I think works for a company as the HR person. 2 of them are private sector HR consultants, and one of them is a retired city attorney, because those 3 HR people are private sector people, and I wanted there to be a kind of public sector voice. And so that's who they are, and then one would be recruited from the general public so that we can at least have some public process for it. So, and with that, Maris.
Yeah, and with that being said, I am definitely in favor of this. When Gretchen brought it up, I've been in favor of it for a while, just because I'm in it. I see what it's like to grapple with salary increases, especially for yourself. It's an uncomfortable topic. At least it is for me. And I think that it's probably the most transparent way to handle salary in a township, and to also public comment and having part of the public be in this committee. So I'm definitely for it, and I would like to move forward with it tonight, but I'm open to other people's perspectives and comments in regards to it. So I just wanted to say that.
Well, I think, we talked, I think it's really important too, and if you have to wait another year and a half, and you guys have been talking about it before, and I appreciate the folks that you've been speaking with, and I was wondering also if Michelle's point about benefits, is it just going to be salary? My understanding is it's like a matrix of, comparing other townships that are similar in size and budget and responsibilities, right? Is that correct?
It's just compensation.
So we can't
So
do
it's not-
benefits?
No.
Okay.
Really? Can we give them a charge that goes beyond the statute?
So that's a statute that they
That's a,
can't?
yeah, that's a big question to
So-
answer on the fly. I would have to look
Okay,
into
so
Understandable.
we'll give you time, maybe you can add that to your list
Yeah,
of follow-up
absolutely.
items from this, and I have to look at my phone to remind myself of the date that this group of people proposed, but I'll, maybe I can give you that date, and, so it's October 4th at 7 PM is when they all think they can meet, so if we could, maybe it's, I mean, I think this board would like for this committee to consider benefits if it's possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, maybe where they have a meeting and then it will have clarity on that on the next board meeting.
And now, this is a meeting that would be, it's a committee meeting, it would be held here, and it's open to the public, just like all other meetings, correct?
It's subject to the Open Meetings Act.
Okay, I figured, but I just
Yeah.
wanted to be sure. Okay,
Yeah.
cool, thank you.
Yeah, good to double check.
Anybody else, you?
Yeah, I would just say, I am strongly supportive. I think it was a great idea. I know that we're moving very quickly, but it feels like we have to. I think, you know, I came in right as we started these discussions last year, and it was very tense for lots of different reasons. And I think that had we had something like this in place, a lot of drama could have been avoided. And I just think, you know, one, it's one of the most transparent ways. It probably would encourage more public conversation. And having these folks who have done this before, it just seems like the right way to go, as opposed to those of us as elected officials picking our own salaries, which is
Yeah.
what it felt like last time. So definitely supportive.
Yeah.
And we can always vote to disagree with the record.
That's right. Right, so the assumption, Sinead, tell me if I get this wrong, but I believe the assumption is that their recommendations, the default is that their recommendations are approved, and we have to take action to disagree with their recommendations.
And it would need to be a 2/3 vote to override their recommendations.
Okay.
I know that questions about political party have come up when we've selected trustees, and I don't know if any of you care about this, but two of these proposed committee members are Republicans and one is an independent. The fourth one, I don't know their party affiliation, but I thought that was a good thing, actually,
Yeah.
because we're a board of, I mean, I trust these people and they're analytical and they're professionals, but I think because they're not in our political party, that's actually underscores their independent nature from us. So I actually like that.
I will agree with you on that one, absolutely, because, I mean, we're representative of a township of all people, doesn't matter candidacy, so, yeah, I'm very much in favor of that.
I know I was the person who spoke out last time. It matters to me when we were choosing a trustee. It's not a question I would have even thought to ask here. I think their expertise in HR and compensation overrides any of that anyways.
I think we're very fortunate. I mean, I have to say, I don't know if they're listening tonight, but we are extremely fortunate for a small community like this to have two HR consultants, an HR professional, and a retired city attorney to be available to serve on a committee like this.
We have a lot of talent in Dexter Township.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
It's kind of
One of the
daunting,
people that have
really.
stepped forward, and just in these last 3 years, it just never ceases to amaze me. We have Alicia over there running our tech.
Yeah, and, right,
And you're awesome, and now you're on boards, and it's
Yeah.
like, it's really cool.
yeah.
Really
Because
cool.
of our strategic planning event.
Yeah.
Which I left this stuff up for one of our discussion items, so. Okay, so are we ready for a vote then on that? So, and Sinead had to lay out, it's kind of complicated. So first, we have the ordinance to create the compensation committee, and that's the motion that's on the board. So I think we can just do, I don't think we need a voice vote, so we'll say all those in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
And any opposed? So hearing none, that's unanimous. So then, because we're implementing immediately, we need a separate resolution to implement the compensation committee immediately.
So moved?
Second?
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yeah, these are great.
Okay. Great. And then finally, a motion to appoint the members of the Compensation Committee, and I want to read out their names. So that's Patrick Cassidy, an HR consultant, James Michaud, an HR consultant, Alyssa Reyes, and I hope I pronounced that right, an HR professional, and Peter Mayer, a retired city attorney.
And that's just 4. You need
And we need to recruit a fifth.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you need board approval.
What?
You'll need board approval
On
for
the
all
fifth.
5, so.
Yeah, so I thought that we would allow them to meet on the 7th, and then we'll have to recruit a 5th member and get this board to approve that in October, but the committee can meet with their quorum with only 4 members.
Okay.
Does it, I think, yeah.
I think that's fine.
Yeah.
I
Can that
just wasn't
person,
sure
can
what
that
you were-
person listen in and be a part, they just don't have a vote yet?
I mean, they can, but that would, if you guys, that would, in a sense, you guys will not have had a chance to approve that person, so they won't know that they're going, they will not know for a fact that they're going to be a member of the committee. But if we select, if somebody steps forward and wants to serve, that person is qualified, and and nobody else steps forward.
Can you refresh me again on how we're advertising that this position is available to the public, and we're
don't.
not?
No, we don't have, I just don't have a plan in place.
Oh, okay, I gotcha, okay, all right.
But
So-
we'll push it out on info in the loop.
Okay.
Sam will put it on our web page. She'll
What
put it
about
on our
Sun
social
Times?
media. We could advertise it in
Times
the
is good.
Sun
That's
Times.
our press, right?
Yeah.
Put a notice out.
Yeah.
I'll move to approve the 4
Candidates.
candidates that are identified in the recommendation.
I'll second it.
Okay,
Sorry, Mary.
all those in
Okay.
favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Now, we also have to set the meeting date and time, and I don't know if we need a motion or if I can just announce it. 'Cause-
Well, all I put in the resolution was that they'll have their first meeting prior to October 10th.
Okay.
And it sounds like, I think you said the 7th?
October
Or
4th
the
at 7 PM
Yeah.
was the time they picked. Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Awesome, thank you, guys. That was a lot of business we just got through. And Maris, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Okay. On the table, Laura, I don't think I was able to let you know when you came in. On the table is the agenda summary that got left out of the board packet by error and accident there. So that's for you to review, and it's just a summary of the changes that have been made. I did send it out an email to everybody with a no reply all earlier today, but understandable if you weren't able to get to that and review it prior to the meeting. Basically, this is just, there's a lot of sophisticated language in the investment policy. It's extremely similar to what we approved a few years ago. It actually was written into our policy that we are to review our investment policy annually, or I am anyways. And that's exactly what I did. Given the current market, we needed to make some changes to what we were seeing a couple years ago. And then you got everybody, the board approved $5,000 to be paid to the Woodhill Group consultant, Matt Woodhill, and it's called Matt Woodhill, Matt Horning. He is a professional that's worked many, many years with Ann Arbor Township. He sits on many investment and financial boards. So I went through all of this with him. He did an analysis, cash flow analysis on our account. And then I actually met with him and supervisor. I asked Supervisor Sickinga to meet with us, so she kind of had a better understanding of the direction that we were going. The first meeting, we had a little bit of difficulty just because when you're looking at a cash flow analysis and the data, everybody knows that we've had a little bit of issues with the general ledger and getting that kind of squared away and fixed. And also moving from where we had before is multiple different bank accounts to more of a, what is the word that I'm looking for? It's when you condense the bank accounts.
Consolidation.
An index fund, right?
No, that's not the word, but you know what I mean. We moved to just solely
Pooled
three.
account.
Yeah, pooled accounting, thank you. Pooled accounting, my brain doesn't work anymore. Anyway, so we moved to the pooled accounting, and this kind of complicated the data analysis a little bit. So what Matt had me do was send him all of our bank statements. So he was able to analyze our data that way to see how much extra cash that we had flowing to be able to invest. And as it turns out, right now, investments that have the shorter investment times, the shorter investment vehicles are yielding more. And I think that's given the current market, the inflation and everything else, this market is going to turn very soon. And we just want a little bit more freedom with different types of investments that we're using. And also, we looked into with socially responsible investments.
That was my question.
Yes, and we did, Laura, and that we are rather limited in that way as a governmental institution in what we can do. I don't know if Gretchen maybe, I know Gretchen's email was down, and I know this is kind of her expertise area, and I was hoping that, no, not anymore, but better than me, I'm sure. You
Better
have
than us,
more
yeah.
experience. But I did reach out, and I know you had issues with your email, but I welcome you, in your opinions of the avenues
So you
and
have an
the.
expert, right?
Yes, we do have an
So
expert.
I would
And this
definitely defer to somebody that's
Okay.
current with everything. It's
But I
been a
just,
while.
given your knowledge too, I just wanted to open that up to you
I
for
appreciate that.
that advice as well, because I am not an expert in that field. I don't think any.
Well, I think one of the things that Matt said that I was surprised about was that the short-term investments are actually more profitable right now
They
than the
are.
longer-term investments, but we had real limits on short-term investments because it was set up to try to maximize our return on investment. But if the shorter-term investments are more profitable, we should have them. We should have more of them because they're more flexible and they're more profitable. So that's kind of the big thing that I think
I
was
just-
correct.
Your CDs, you didn't have a dollar per issue, or when you highlighted it, it said no limit.
Oh, that wasn't my highlighting, that was Matt's actually, and I'm not sure if that's open for us to discuss those limits as a board.
It's on page 96.
Yeah, 96, thank you.
Is this a discussion period, just point of?
Yeah, for sure
Point
it
of
is.
process?
Yeah,
Okay,
and you
'cause
know what, I don't want anybody to feel, if you haven't had a chance to look this over and like you got the agenda summary late, I don't want you to feel like this is something that needs to be rushed by any means. This can also get pushed back to October's meeting. I don't think I'm going to be at that meeting, but if you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me, and if we don't want to approve this tonight.
I think we're going to have to because we don't know what this certificates of deposit, unless you have a suggestion, but I wouldn't have any idea.
I'm
what
not,
they're-
I haven't been in that industry in a really long time, I would never want to,
Yeah.
that's why we hire professionals.
One of the things, maybe we should convert this to a
And I
discussion
think-
item, because one of the
Well-
things that we talked about, Maris, was getting somebody to do our investment. We're looking for somebody to actually, so Matt Hornig can give us advice on the investment policy, but he's not an advisor.
Right.
So, and we don't have an advisor, so we're trying to find an advisor right now.
Well, maybe that should be part of our moving forward, is like, talking to people and running this policy past them also as part of the RFP or.
Yeah, no, I'm totally open to any and all. I think the more the merrier that has an eye on this, to turn our money the best we can, especially given, it's different now, and it
Very
changes.
different. Yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
It changes all the time, and that's why I think a review of it every year is definitely warranted, and it's
Especially
interesting.
We have money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, yeah.
Well, I wonder,
Big
Maris, do you want us to approve it now so we can at least start moving funds into shorter term?
Yeah, that would be.
Funds, and then we can keep working on it and keep looking for an advisor?
It is in our policy too, that before I make these investments, that the executive committee, we meet once a week, and I do need to bring these investments forward to the two of you. I'm not sure that if you knew that, because that was put in place when Diane was in the seat. So that this is something that I would discuss with you both before moving forward.
I'll move to adopt the amended policy, and with the understanding that we're going to be continuing to pursue additional investment advice.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But certainly, it needs to be more current. That was pretty clear.
Yeah. Yeah.
Second.
I think it's a good job.
So now we can discuss.
Even though we were discussing already, but yeah, we're a little bit out
I
of
just
order,
want
but
to
yeah,
say
go ahead.
that, you know, I'm not, again, this is not my area of expertise. But what's important to me is that we be as socially responsible as possible with our investments. Like, I don't think we should be building helping build nuclear weapons. Let's go to health or water or whatever it is. And so whatever whoever works on it, should that be built into?
Well, Laura, we
this,
did,
or-
we did discuss with Matt, and see,
Okay.
and the issue with it is finding socially responsible, but also approved by the state, you know, because it's very narrow what
Yeah.
is a governmental institution, what you can invest your money with, and it has to be, it has to be safe, secure. So a
Right.
lot of socially responsible, unfortunately, a lot of socially responsible, they may not be as the higher level of safe that we need as a governmental institution. And if you do find them, and they do exist, I mean, what is it, school
Well,
bonds?
he
and-
said municipal bonds are the, for socially responsible local government entities, that's a really great place to go, and you can find them. And that means you're investing in your local community. So-
Exactly.
So what, that might be schools or.
Well, I guess
And I
what
plan
my
to-
question is, can we put some language in here that suggests that that's our direction, that that's important to us, that these are our values
Yeah, we certainly can,
for
of
the
course.
township?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
then, this is our guide, right?
Yep.
This is the guiding
Kind of like the
document.
master plan of our
Exactly,
investment
this is the
policy.
master plan of our investment.
Yeah, no, I totally respect that, Laura, and I did,
Okay.
and I mean, Karen brought it up in the meeting, and we talked to Matt about it, and like I said, I mean, they do exist.
Yeah.
They get snatched up quickly.
Right.
Typically, they're harder to find.
Okay.
So, I'm gonna be working and reaching out with, Catherine, and I don't know if anybody even remembers, because it seems like eons ago that Catherine, came in to talk to us from Multibank Securities and give us the.
I remember
give
a
us the
little
one-
bit, yeah.
Yeah, and so all this time I've kept in contact with her. I will be reaching out to her, very excited to be able to start working with her now. And yeah, I'll be talking to her about that too, because she might be able to give me some ideas on how to get these a little quicker.
But we'll come back next month with, what if we come back what if we approve this as it is, but we promise to come back as soon as possible with amount for that, on that page 8, and then we'll look at some language around preferring socially
The
responsible.
first page of the investment policy,
Yeah.
under policy, the fourth paragraph, it talks about the policy of the township to invest funds in a manner, and you maybe could just add another sentence saying that, following those guidelines, we would prioritize socially responsible investing.
That
Yeah,
sounds
can we
great.
put that language in?
Yeah,
That
why don't
would
we
be
just
good.
do that now? We can do that right now.
Okay. Where will we put it?
Page 89.
It's the first.
Can you
Right, the
repeat
first
it?
page
Can-
of the whole
can-
policy.
Right.
Following
Under
those-
policy or scope?
It would be under policy.
Okay.
Following those guidelines, the township,
What's the language?
yeah, what's the language? Can you repeat it?
Following the Public Act 20 of 1843, the township plans on investing in a socially responsible manner, or,
I would say
or
maybe
goal- have a
prefers,
goal, or-
prefers,
Yeah.
will prefer, will invest in socially
So it would be
responsible.
while following.
First choice,
Yeah.
and that would be our.
Following
first
those
choice.
guidelines, the township will invest in socially,
We'll make every effort.
Yeah.
Prefer
Yeah.
investment and socially responsible.
will make every effort, I like that, every effort, to invest in socially responsible funds.
It's interesting that it's hard, It's just, because whenever you're socially responsible, it's harder.
Well-
Right? It's not as accessible, it's not as available on almost every level. So
Funds or vehicles.
I say let's put in the extra effort where we can. And I hear you, that it's not.
And you might want to run that past Matt.
Yeah,
Not just-
we did.
No, the statement that we're.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
to make sure it's.
Yep, I will be
acceptable.
messaging him tomorrow, yeah.
And not to be a stickler on process, are we offering this as a formal amendment?
Yes,
And can
I'll
someone
take
read
it as an
the,
amendment. Or
read
actually,
the
I made
official
an amendment
language?
to my motion. Stickler.
sorry.
Okay, and so there's an amendment to the motion, so do I hear a second? for
I'm
that
sorry,
amendment?
can I pause this Is it too late? Because Janice did give me, because Janice has looked over.
Oh, you have another amendment?
Yeah, sorry Janice, I just totally remembered, and I can't read your writing, but can we let Janice speak as to what she noticed and what she would like to see? Is that okay, Karen?
It's just a correction in the language is all it is. It's not changing anything. On page 8, the highlighted area that says investment shall not exceed the following limits of each of the categories listed below. And then hanging on to that sentence is as a percentage of the total portfolio. That's a qualifier for the investments. So it should be investments, comma, as a percentage of the total portfolio, comma, shall not exceed the following limits in each of the categories listed below. That's the way it should read. So I'm just, that hanging on, the period should be listed below, should be the period. And that hanging on afterwards needs to qualify the investments.
Are you saying after total portfolio? That we say that again?
No, investments, comma,
Yeah.
as a percentage of the total portfolio,
Okay.
comma, and then the rest of the sentence.
Okay.
I'm sorry, my school teacher is showing.
It's because there's a lack of clarity about whether this, as a percentage of the total portfolio, pertains to the categories.
Investment shall not exceed the following limits in each of the categories listed below as a percentage of the total portfolio.
She just wants it moved.
It's just a grammatical change.
Yeah,
I
Yeah,
think
it's just
it's
a
fine.
grammatical change. We'll just accept.
I think it's fine.
We just accept the grammatical change.
So it's good.
And sort of, so do you accept
I
that?
accept it.
And do you accept those amendments, Lonnie?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's not do a voice vote, because this is just an amendment to an existing policy. Okay, so I have a motion on the floor to approve the investment policy with a couple of amendments, one to add language about socially responsible and one minor grammatical error. And so I have a motion and a second. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Yeah, we did it. You guys are awesome. This was a lot of business for one meeting. And so now we're moving into.
Well, you were so well organized.
Yeah.
I just want to say, go. Yeah.
So now we're moving into discussion items, and we've got a couple of big discussion items, and I will say also there were a couple of big things in the supervisor's report as well. Let's start with the Board of Trustees rules. This is another item that has come up, I think, almost since we started. In most of our committees and boards have bylaws, and for whatever reason, the Board of Trustees has not had bylaws. So this is just a first reading for all of you on some proposed bylaws, initially provided by Sinead, an example, and then I did a little bit of editing. All I want to do right now is talk about it for a minute, collect any questions, and come back. And I know I have the social media question already on the list, but are there other questions that you guys have about the bylaws? Gretchen?
Yeah, under order of business, I'm not sure about this, but
What page are you on, Gretchen?
under page
105,
3,
yeah.
after 105.
Okay.
I'm wondering if, and you may know better, but if you're calling for public comment on agenda items, but the agenda wasn't approved yet?
Yeah, that's an interesting point.
So in case there's a change to the agenda, before,
Yeah, like even tonight, I wanted to say, well, can we change this? Because we've got
So I
members of the
think it
public.
would make more sense to ask for the, I know those people are really upset, and I don't blame them. I mean, it's been going on forever, and we're all kind of like a deer in the headlights. And that, I think it was really great that we, let them speak. I think the thing that a lot of people, when they are really frustrated about a situation that they feel they haven't been heard on, I know you tried to do it a little bit, but I think we worked with them to have them speak, and that hopefully they understand, or we can help clarify that this agenda is to business that's on the agenda, and that, because somehow people that's why I kind of
You
bent
thought,
the rules a little bit by talking, because we're not really supposed to engage with public comment, I don't think, but I just, sometimes I feel like people want to talk about something they're really upset about, and we give them the 3 minutes, and then we can't even talk about it anymore, and so it's really hard. So that's, I'm kind of commingling a conversation here, but
that's why you think it would be good so you think it would be good not to allow, to keep it as it is, and have people speak to non-agenda items at the
I
end,
think
so
we
we
should
can.
write on the agenda.
Well, it is written.
Public comment
It is
on
written.
agenda items.
It is on the
Oh,
agenda,
you're right,
but
it is.
people
Do you
don't know.
think- Well, then, and then just say something like, this is a business meeting, and these are, like elaborate a little bit, especially if there's people that are, like, that one lady was so upset, and I just felt really bad that
I know.
I felt like, and I kind of was out of order, but I felt like she wasn't heard, or that nobody cared here.
Yeah.
And I don't think that was your intention at all. You were trying to do the meeting, right? So.
Well, I mean, this is a new experience for, I'm new in the chair.
Yeah, we're
role.
all like, well, yeah.
And I'm really more of a policy person than a political, so for me, I didn't know what they were talking, so.
Yeah.
I don't know.
They don't even know that, right?
Like,
and so that's why
yeah.
I kind of said something, because otherwise they would leave and then talk to all their neighbors and say, they didn't even listen to us. They just went out of the meeting.
Right.
And that wasn't your intent at all.
Right.
So, so I guess I would say to change the public comment, and then like just kind of reiterate, because
to put the public comment
after the approval of the agenda.
after the approval of the agenda, and then when we introduce the public comment.
Just say this is specifically for, as stated in the agenda, this is specifically for our business meeting tonight.
And stick with that and not make it flexible. Because I wanted to let them be
I
able to
think
get
that
out there.
circumstance was very unusual,
Yeah.
hopefully.
Yeah,
And I
we've
don't
never
know
had that
if
before, yeah.
anybody here knew that this was going to be happening, because for me, like, I think we all felt like deer in the headlights, and I really wanted to, like, make sure that they understood that
Guys, I need to excuse myself for just a second, sorry. Yeah, just.
so that we were responsive, even though it's not really the protocol for a meeting, but there are unique circumstances. So I think overall you handled it really well. But when that one lady was like, it's been going on for 10 years, and we're all like, well, we don't know what you're talking about, and then we don't look so great. We don't know like what's going on. So that's a whole other conversation that we have to figure out. If there are people that are really upset about something, then how is it that they come to a meeting and we haven't heard about it yet? Like, that's a whole other conversation.
Well, that's about the planning function, so I did know that somebody told me today that some people, that I knew about we're not talking about the bylaws right now.
Yeah,
We're
I'm
just,
sorry.
we're
But
just
I'll put it
giving-
on the end of the meeting, because I did want to bring it up.
Yeah, because this is I think as we get more active as we are now, we're going to have more members of the public coming to the meetings. We're used,
Yeah, especially if we get video, interactive.
Yeah, and so we're going to need to learn how to handle it when members of the public come, but I didn't feel fully prepared for it today. So, go ahead.
Sorry.
But
I
want to say, to me, this is a digression. We're not really talking about.
I completely agree with you.
Yeah, and this is, and it's a
sidebar.
problem for this board, that we get off topic. And I would like to just stay on the bylaws, and really, it's on topic in the sense that you're proposing that we change the order of the agenda, and I'm happy to do that, and I think that makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
And and at the end, we can come back to this if you want to, but I do think that when we have our planning function staffed, we're gonna,
We can't wait for that. Well, I'll talk about it at the end.
Yeah.
Just really quick, being a person that has sat out there, I have been one of those anxious ones.
Yeah,
so
and I want to get
did
off that
like
topic.
that.
Can we
Yeah,
get
I'm
off that
sorry.
topic?
That was
I really
out
want
of
to get on the
order.
topic. If it pertains to, we want to change the order of the agenda that's proposed in the bylaws, then we can continue it. But I want to stay on the bylaws now, and then you guys can come back to this at the end.
I think it does. If not, I can be the third person that you could tell me that we'll add it to the end. I actually think that changing the order to the approval of the agenda first, before the first call for public comment, but to Gretchen's point, as it relates to this order of business, that's the reason that non-agenda items are placed right before other issues, because the board could respond in the
Yes.
other issues
Yeah.
section at the end of the agenda.
So I
So I
think-
think our mistake
That's what I
was
think.
altering it today. So I
That-
think we
that's
should
what I-
stick with this order and not change just because we have people who want to speak, even if we have a long meeting.
And then also, we can debrief with them afterwards, you know? And so I think it was a mistake to make that change. And this,
Well,
and this,
I'm not saying that. I don't agree, actually. I think you had you had a lot of people in this room. That's why I asked if it was all on the same issue. If it was 6 different issues, I wouldn't agree. But there was a significant group of people. We don't normally have people at these meetings. And so if there's a group that have the same issue and they're clearly, you know, the first lady spoke for everybody, but and you had asked just one, and they were clearly distraught. I mean, they're frightened and they're worried about, it sounds like, their property value. So I personally think we did the right thing. I agree with Karen that I shouldn't have brought it up. This thing about moving the the public comment on agenda items to after the agenda was before we had this meeting. Like, I was thinking about this earlier today.
this agenda that I proposed, so this is a new order of business for us, and it's not new to you because it's been like this.
Right.
But we have only been using this order of business since May or June, whenever I started facilitating the first meeting, and the couple of significant changes. I mean, there's a lot about it that's very different than what we were doing before. So we've got the consent calendar that is meant to make the meetings go more quickly. We're asking for comments from the public on agenda items up front, because what we were getting was people telling us at the end of the meeting, they'd come up and say, I think you did the wrong thing, you should have done this or you should have done that. By that time, the decision was made. So I wanted to have them coming forward and giving their opinions on the agenda items up front so we could consider public opinion in making the decision. So I said, if you're commenting at the end, you're not commenting on agenda items. You're making those comments at the beginning. And then we are clearly separating out the discussion items from the action items, because we had a lot of confusion about whether we were being asked to take action or not before. And then the second call for public comment on non-agenda items at the end was just to give people an opportunity to speak about anything that they had in mind. But now that I've seen the way this rolled out, I do think that there are other advantages to putting that public comment on non-agenda items at the end. You say you don't agree, we can debate that. But right now, this is just a tiny piece of the bylaws.
Great.
I mean, the bylaws are many pages long, so. I do feel like, I mean, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like this format for the agenda has been working a lot better than the old
I like it.
Yes.
The only thing that I did appreciate was letting people that with this much passion actually coming out of their home to speak, acknowledging them. Please sign in, leave your information. We hear you. We will get back with you. Because I've been just stared at before, and of course went and sat down and not knowing if they were going to get back to me or.
It's very weird to speak and then and ask questions and not get an answer. It feels very awkward.
So I think we're going to need some
It
standard
does.
language on how to respond to that, and I'm happy to talk with you about that after, because it is super difficult when people get up and it's not on the
Because you want to
agenda, you don't
answer
know
it.
anything about it, and they want you to solve their problem like now, or at least say, and you did, say, we hear you, we're going to look into it. That's still kind of, yeah, right, it's been 10 years. That's what I heard from that lady. She's like, she doesn't believe us. So that's why I was kind of thinking, what else can we do? But again, we don't know enough about it. Excuse me.
And I didn't want to say, oh, well, it's new to us and we don't know anything about it, because that's what we're really digressing on and having trouble getting off of this topic, but that feels like we're throwing the prior people under the bus, and I don't really want to do that, it's, you know, so.
Well, this is a whole nother conversation, not
yeah,
on the rules. I think
yeah.
I will bring it up under other issues.
That's the thing, we need the history to know why they, in the past, this has been taking 10 years, because it could be just that there's laws protecting this person from doing certain things that we have no control over. We get in these situations a lot.
So, does anybody have any other questions? I'm sorry, Mary.
No, that's okay.
I know you're the first, I know that you're the first, you are not the big offender. It's
I'm
really
fine.
me that's
No,
the big
you're right.
offender.
No, let's
Yes,
move
yeah,
along.
yeah.
I just have
Anything else?
one question.
Yeah.
So our other boards and committees, this is in line with all of those other pieces that they're following as well? I mean, understanding that ours is more probably larger than theirs, given the scope of the board.
I did not I did not compare this to the other boards, committees. I mean, I don't know if you got, Laura, maybe you did this look consistent with the bylaws of the farmland and open
You know
space?
what, honestly, I had to skim this because I went through everything. I got to this point and I was skimming this quickly at the end, so I really don't want to come. Also, I just need to say that I'm having a bit of a crisis, it's a little urgent thing that's going on our farm, and there is nobody there. My spouse is in Chicago. Okay, and I tried to contact a neighbor, and nobody's responding. I think that I'm going to leave all my stuff.
Yeah.
I need to run over there and come right back. Okay?
Well, I mean, we don't have
Yeah,
any
Laura, I
more,
think you can
we don't have any more decisions on the agenda.
We don't? We don't have
only
any
have
more voting
we've
things?
gone through the
Okay.
discussion items.
Yeah, but I like discussion.
Well,
So-
okay, well,
If you want to text me when you're
I'm
ready to
gonna,
come back. with something.
I'm gonna zip over there. It takes me 4 minutes to drive home.
Okay.
And I'll take care of it,
Okay.
and then I'll come back.
Okay.
Okay, I'm leaving all my stuff.
Be
Thank
careful,
you.
Laura, don't rush.
no, I'll be fine. And thank you. So, and Laura, I'll say this as you're walking out, to me, one of the big policy decisions that's embedded in this bylaw is that we're going to change, I'm proposing that we change our practice from requiring people to be here in person if they want to comment on the agenda items to moving to allowing public participation via Zoom. And that is something that we were advised, or somebody here was advised by the MTA that we couldn't have public participation via Zoom, and so we have had a policy ever since we started meeting in person that we wouldn't allow online participation, and now I'm proposing to change that because we have a legal opinion that says it's allowable. And so that's a change in our policy.
That's great.
And I can speak a little bit more to that if that's helpful, or if anyone has any questions. Just about what's
ahead.
allowable
Yeah,
and
yeah.
what's not, because I know it can kind of, it can be a little bit confusing. So members of the board need to be here in person if they want to participate, and so participation, includes discussion, it includes voting on items, all of the things that you do as somebody who's a member of the board. I think where sometimes people get a little bit tripped up is that, say, for example, you are out of town, you're a board member and you're out of town, and you'd like to listen in on the meeting to, just so that you're aware for the next meeting what was discussed and things like that. You are more than welcome to do that. You can log in just like any member of the public, but you cannot participate. So that's allowable. And, if there was something really pressing that you wanted to bring up in public comment, at the end of the meeting or something like that, you could also do that. You would just be functioning as a member of the public. But members of the public, can participate, during the public comment sessions.
I think it's a great idea.
I think we'll get more public participation, and we'll have to manage it, and there will be a cost to that, because we'll have to have somebody here to manage be managing the public that want to speak. And I know some townships require people or ask people at least to sign up in advance if they know they're coming.
They do, yeah. So you can have people do that, and have the same 3-minute time limit for online comments as well.
I think everybody knows, just in the last couple of months, I gave a presentation both at Scioto and Ann Arbor Townships, and they both allowed this Zoom participation. And I would say that, maybe 4 or 5 people participated over Zoom, and maybe one or two in person. So it did look to me like a lot more people were participating than would have if it hadn't been up.
I was at Ann Arbor until 11 PM last night, so.
Oh, wow.
No, the township.
Oh, wow.
But that was for, that's unusual. Usually, yeah, you're completely right. You know, you'll get 3 or 4 comments, as opposed to maybe 1 or 2.
So, do you guys
I
have?
think there's one other question we have.
Yeah.
And I actually wrote it on my paper, but Michelle's going to bring it up since I've been talking too much.
In regards to the order of business, I was actually going to bring it up at the end for next month potentially to bring it up as a topic, but the pledge.
Oh, the pledge. Yeah, so it's a question, I took it off, not for any, like, I saw in the Dexter, in the Dexter forum that it was removed because it could be controversial. I did look into it and see that it could be controversial, but that's not why I took it off. I just was trying to shorten the meeting because we have a history of very long, very, very long meetings. And then Janice noticed it and asked about it, and I said, well, I'll see if anybody mentions it and if anybody cares about it, but we haven't made a policy decision about it. So, some places do it, others don't. I don't personally have strong opinions about it.
I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, because Laura's not here right now, but I believe that she said that she would like to do the pledge if we also
did a native land, an
Thank
acknowledgement of
you. I
native
couldn't
land.
remember what that was, but I'll do
Well, maybe
both.
let's have that conversation, because we're just talking about this right now.
Yeah, we're not making any.
Yeah, so let's have that conversation, because I know the Farmland and Open Space Preservation Committee does the pledge.
Yeah, and so does the Planning Commission.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just
And it's
was
been,
wondering
and it has
also.
been the practice here in Dexter Township, but they don't do it, and I don't think they do it in Ann Arbor or Scioto townships, so.
Not Ann Arbor, at least.
Yeah, so I think it's not, and then they don't do it in the city of Ann Arbor either, and it is, I did do a lot of reading about it after Janice brought it up, and it did make me feel kind of like, I didn't, yeah, so. I don't know.
Well, we can talk about it further at the next meeting or when Laura comes back.
Yeah.
I didn't have any other questions about the rules. It was well laid out.
Maris or Lonnie, do you have a question? Okay. Well, that's pretty straightforward then. It seems like we can probably bring the bylaws to the board for approval next month, because you're not asking for anything. Okay, so the next thing is the discussion of the strategic priorities, and we had the strategic planning session, and I left the materials up so that they would be here to remind us of what we did there, but at that meeting, you all asked me to write a summary of what I thought were the big priorities and issues, and so that's what this is. That I was really trying to distill out what I heard everybody saying. So it's no more than a summary of the meeting. It's not intended to be a recommendation necessarily. But we'll validate the fund balances policy with careful analysis and specific policy setting around our capital improvement and emergency funds, and adjust available balances accordingly, and there's an extra D in there. We'll prioritize items that provide direct benefits to the largest number of Dexter Township residents. We'll prioritize items that provide ongoing or perpetual benefits like infrastructure. We'll prioritize items that don't require ongoing administrative effort, so we don't want to commit to anything that creates an operational need for us. And then the most urgent matters that people raised were, so you can see I kind of divided it into the kind of framing of what we wanted to fund, and then the specific items that people were mostly talking about. And emergency preparedness was a big one, connectivity, especially cell coverage, stewardship of the waterways and land, public safety, and any direct benefit, just kind of this miscellaneous idea of a direct benefit, a direct benefit to the residents. So is that consistent? You all were at the strategic planning and
Well
good summary?
Short and sweet.
Yeah. Well, you asked me to make it short and sweet and to provide something that the public could react to. And I think the idea was that then we would start doing some public engagement on this topic and just ask people here's what we're thinking. I think the idea is instead of saying, what do you want? We're going to say, here's what we're thinking. Is this consistent with your priorities?
Yeah.
And so then we need somebody to step forward and
Engage.
and do the work of engaging the public on this. Volunteers?
How do we go about selecting that person?
I mean, it should be one of, one or two, or it should be us, basically. We should.
Yeah. How do we do that, though?
Well, somebody raises their hand, or two
Well,
people.
no. I mean, no, that's not what I
We need
mean.
to have a little subcommittee.
That's what I mean.
We need like a subcommittee.
I'll sign up for the subcommittee.
I'll be on the committee. Can we both be? I mean,
Yes,
is it
I think,
okay?
I
It's
honestly
just only
think
to
this
discuss
should,
how to do this.
I honestly think this should be a board committee. There are board committees that are comprised only of board members, and I kind of think it would be good to start with the board members.
I love engaging the community, but
So
So
do you
that's
three
three?
want to be our
Sounds good to
subcommittee?
me.
And then we can expand you'll tell us what to do.
Brainstorm.
And
Yeah.
it might be expanding the committee to include other members of the public.
Great. Are we making that decision tonight? Probably not, though, right? Because this isn't an action item. Are we saving that for next month?
I think you three can go ahead.
We
and
can
meet.
do. Okay.
I don't even think we need a
Is
motion.
that
of the
okay?
board.
Yeah.
And there's no problem, like, us talking about stuff. Do we have to have an open meeting or anything like that? As
Because
part
it's
of
only
this, just
three of
talking
the
about
three of them make
community
a plan.
Like talking about a plan to meet or?
A plan to figure out how to engage the community around our strategic priorities.
Well, it's not a quorum.
it's not a
Right.
quorum.
Yeah.
I just wanted your
Yeah.
expert advice. That's where you make the big bucks.
Yeah. Yeah, so that should be fine. Yeah, as long as, just
And so
don't
will you-
invite a fourth person.
Yeah.
Right. And so will you guys come back to us with a
Yeah.
recommendation? And I'll make that an agenda item, an action, well, you'll let me know if it's a discussion item or an action item.
Yeah, I can send out an email tomorrow and like we can try to
Set the
figure
date.
out a
Yeah.
date.
Excellent. I love it, guys. Good. Well, any other discussion items on that, strategic priorities? Okay, so then I want to move on to the supervisor's report real quick, because I just wanted to make sure that you guys read especially the police and fire millage part of it, Yeah, yeah. And then also I noted go ahead.
Well, what happens if it expires at the end of this year? Do we not have revenue?
The revenue, the revenue comes in January and funds the following year. So if we get it approved in August, so then the revenue will come in again in December. So the fire millage is collected in December. So it expires at the end of December, and then we have to get voter approval on it, or we could do a special assessment district, so we could not take it to the voters. But we have time because the next tax collection is December of 2024. But if you're asking, should we have acted on this sooner? 100%, yes, we should have. But it's not too late, it's not going to be a crisis.
So the revenue comes in December for the next year.
Right. And so if we get this on the August ballot and it's turned down by the voters, we have another shot in November.
Correct.
And so we still have two shots if we decide to go to the voters.
Will we have the opportunity to do it before that if there are like presidential primaries or other votes taking place?
It was suggested August, and then if it was not successful, November.
My biggest concern is that Washtenaw County's public safety and mental health millage, I believe, is also up and will be before the voters in the same time frame. And I'm concerned, I believe I brought this up at one of my first meetings when we were talking with the fire department and others about the renewal of their contract. My big concern is that it confuses people. Both of them provide much needed services and funding, and having two of them on the exact same ballot seems not not easy for folks to understand. So I would definitely love to know what options we have, if we do have other options, and to know from the county if it is their intent to have their millages on the same ballots, just so we can have that in our, as we plan.
I mean, I think I got the message that it wasn't a good idea to put it on the March. If we do the March primary for the presidential primary, that I almost had the impression that it's disallowed, but I'm not.
I don't know if it's necessarily disallowed, and I'll have that information tomorrow, but I know it wasn't.
Like not recommended?
Exactly, not recommended. Not strongly unrecommended, but not really.
I just think we need to have the whole scope in mind as to what we're going to end up asking voters to approve, because I do.
Well, we haven't talked about the SAD though.
Right. Because
Right,
we could
yeah.
do it-
I just mean as we discuss.
We could do it as a special assessment district.
Yep.
I brought it up last year. I wanted to have this on a special election last year, but.
Anyway, that doesn't
that's
matter.
done.
I mean, what happened last year doesn't matter. What matters now is how are we going to solve this
But I
problem.
knew that if
But that doesn't matter.
successful.
So the
We do
question.
have another opportunity, either another potential on the ballot or SAD.
Right, so are we going to, so we have to make that big policy decision. And we also have to decide, well, you saw all the policy decisions that I listed out, because we also have to decide on the amount, and.
Correct.
And we have to decide on that. Well, what's going to drive the amount of the millages, what we want our fund balance policy to be.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of questions in this that we need time to see. So are you saying that you're going to be coming up with some further recommendations for our next meeting, or?
I mean, I really think this is a clerk function. But I wanted to raise the topic as a starting point.
So do you want us to submit our questions?
I think that
as
would be
part of the
helpful,
process to
and I'm
make a
gonna,
decision?
and I'm planning to help Michelle, because.
Sure.
But one of my questions was how many times has the police fire millage been voted on in the past? Do we know? Like you said, it's like every 5 years. Has this been like five 25 years ago? When did we first start doing a millage for fire?
I know the agreement has been in place for 40 years. so
40?
I believe they said 40 years.
But it may have just come from the general fund.
It could have, but I think it would, I don't think it can have just come from the general fund, because it's too expensive. The fire budget is almost equal to the general fund budget. so.
But it may not have always been that way.
That's true.
I mean, in the past, communities had, it was all paid on call.
We had a lot of volunteer.
It was all volunteers. There wasn't a full-time fire chief. I mean, things are different, right?
Yeah, very
There's more
different.
risk out there, and we were talking about more emergency preparedness, and so it's a different time. But I was just wondering how the community would feel, if we do this special assessment district, there wouldn't be a vote. And I know typically people support, public safety, so, but at the same time, as was mentioned, there's other things on the ballot. Obviously, this is very time sensitive.
Right.
So I think there's a lot of questions that we got to keep pushing on. But that would be one of my questions.
And your question is, can we put it on an earlier?
On the spring presidential.
Do you have are there other questions?
Is because if we put it on earlier, if it
Then we
by
have
chance does
two
get voted down,
chances.
then we get 2 chances, right? I think that's a good idea.
And the other policy decision is, do we convert it to a public safety?
Well, I think my other question is, you're recommending a higher millage rate, and I would want more information on that, the needs of that.
Well, that is I don't know, I would not say I'm recommending the higher millage rate. I'm calculating a higher millage rate based on what I know of the collective bargaining and the staffing goals of the fire department. We are part of this 3-party agreement, And the only way that the three-party agreement can be changed is by a unanimous vote of all three elected bodies. So we're in it, or we can withdraw from it, but we can't change the terms of the agreement. And if they enter, if they enter into collective bargaining and the collective bargaining agreement is approved by the DAFD board, then we are going to be obligated, if we remain in the agreement, to pay the value of our share, which is, and that's the calculated amount. And
when is that gonna, if you put it in here, when is that gonna be?
It's going to wrap up this fall soon. I mean, I was expecting it to wrap up already, you know, but so it's going to be any minute is my feeling. The other big discretion, the other thing that they're debating on the DAFD board is the staffing level. So there's a goal of having 2 firefighters at each station, and there's 3 stations now, and that's a pretty significant increase in their staffing levels. So they're both looking at increased staffing levels and pretty significantly increased compensation for the existing firefighters. And then we'll have a choice: either we fund from a millage, a special funding source, we fund from a combination of the millage and the general fund, which we could do, or we can withdraw from the agreement. But what we can't do, we can advocate for what we're not going to have. We don't want to have 2 staff members we don't want to have 2 firefighters at each station or whatever. We can advocate for lower costs, but we can't really control it because we're only two. We're two.
Are they doing any community conversations around staffing?
I mean, I've only been to 1 meeting so far, so I'm trying to get up to speed on everything.
I think that there's a lot going on. That's really a lot of money.
Right.
And we need more information.
Well, and we were talking about having Lonnie, the other 2 jurisdictions have 2 members of the boards of trustees on the DAFD board, but we have only myself, and I'm brand new, and somebody who's not a board of trustee member. And we're talking about having Lonnie take his place, and he's very happy for that to happen. But he's our representative, Mark Ford, is extremely competent, very engaged in the collective bargaining effort. And so removing him from the board in the middle of this collective bargaining didn't seem like a good idea. But you know, he's been gone from the last, so I'm not fully up to speed. I'm trying to get up to speed on everything, you know, as you can see. I mean, these are very full agendas.
So they meet monthly, correct?
Mm-hmm. Right, and they're meeting on
Thursday.
Thursday.
We get copies of the minutes as trustees?
We can. I haven't been distributing.
I'd be interested.
I mean, I got the minutes today. I got the package today for the Thursday meeting.
I mean, I'm just trying to, obviously I'm new and I'm trying to get up to speed. You know, I'm the one that sends strategic priorities. We need more emergency preparedness, so I'm not necessarily advocating one way or another, but I think I don't have enough information to feel comfortable in making any decision right now. So I don't really know.
Oh, we're not asking for any.
I know, but I mean,
right
what
now.
our questions
we're
are
only,
kind of things.
Yes, we're only doing decision. This was just to introduce the idea because I became aware, because I started going to the meetings, that this is happening.
Okay.
But I haven't even been able to reach the state, you know, and that we should have done this before. I mean, you know, and so I'm bringing it to your attention now, and I'm going to be researching it. But I'm also building an airplane while I'm trying to fly the plane. And I have not reached the State Board of Equalization to find out whether the calculus. So, like I said, I'm not recommending this millage rate. This is merely a calculation, and I don't know whether it's even permissible because I don't know whether we have room in our, you know, heaven.
Okay.
So I tried to call the State Board of Equalization, but they haven't called me back.
Yeah,
so.
that's fine.
Can we quickly address Gretchen's concern? DAFD has an excellent website. All of their minutes of all of their meetings are out there. So you can get up to speed by going and reading their minutes.
Okay.
Did you have questions, Lonnie, about this? Because I know you and I talked about this.
No, I mean, it's not relevant here, and it is not your fault. So I will refrain from my comments. It was a direct question that I asked of our previous supervisor. And I'm feeling really like this is a disservice to the community for us to have to be rushing through this type of decision. But I'll leave it at that.
Right. And I feel bad that I didn't bring it forward in June, but.
I knew the importance, but I'll leave it there. But Gretchen, I will say attend the meetings because I did learn a lot about the fire board and the importance of more staff. So.
Okay, so the other big thing that I noted is that we budgeted a transfer into the open space initiative of $282,000, but we did not, where's that money coming from? It's coming from the general fund, and I think there was an assumption that because we budgeted it last year, it's there, but that's not really how it works. So we have to make we've got to make a decision about that. But I don't want to do that now. And so one of the things, and I'll look at you two that are on the farm board, that because we've got that millage now, so that $300,000 was appropriated at the beginning of fiscal '23, which was, years ago, and subsequently the millage was approved. So, and the general fund appropriation, only $18,000 of it was used. And so I think it's a policy question. Do we want to just transfer that whole $282,000 over there when the millage is also sitting there unexpended, or do we want to do this in a multi-year kind of, if they're going to need $18,000 a year, maybe it makes sense instead of giving the whole $282,000 to make it more like an operating expense. A general fund subsidy of $20,000 a year or something, if that's all they can spend. I don't want to set aside $300,000 in general fund dollars if you're not going to use it. I would rather turn it into an ongoing supplement to the millage. So I want to kind of put it out to you guys to develop a multi-year budget that shows us what, I don't want to just say, oh, this was a budget error and we're going to appropriate $282,000 in general fund dollars right now. I want you to come back to the board and give us a budget that justifies some general fund support.
I think I remember us talking about this and there being a real guarantee that was just money that was placed differently in that general fund, that was going to come back to the farm board because we had agreed on it. And I think it's hard to predict because of the nature of the farmland. I mean, what happens is that landowners come to us, so it's a little hard to predict, to create a predictive budget, but are we on the same page? I mean, I remember talking about this.
I actually think, so one thing I think is that an ongoing budget appropriation is more valuable than a one-time. So I wouldn't think of this, this proposal isn't meant as a takeaway from the open space board, because ongoing appropriation is ongoing, it's in perpetuity, it's intended to be in perpetuity. And if you only have the capacity to spend $20,000 a year, it also is not really a proper use of general fund dollars to put aside $300,000 in for an expense 10 years from now, like a farmland.
It wouldn't be that.
Yeah.
That's not the point.
We can get something put together.
I think Gretchen can.
I think that
Gretchen can.
we're both, though, your point is well taken, but I think her point's well taken too, that opportunities come up and there are some strategies that we haven't.
And I remember saying, it's probably in a minute, I remember saying, we're approving this to be moved, but it's coming back from the general fund, and we said that.
You just wants to see that we have plans or,
Yeah, well, I want to say the plan.
reasons.
My question is because I know it's not a farmland, open space, farmland preservation boards and whatnot are not extremely common around this area, and I know Webster does it. is there something to compare it to and how they worked this? And, you know, did they have, you know, did they set a large amount of money aside like we have? How did they get it going? You know what I mean? Like that's, I guess, I would want to compare it to how other townships have functioned their preservation program. You know, I mean, how did Webster do it? You know, I guess I could call and ask, you know, somebody over there, you know, John and SIO, yeah, and ask them like, hey, how did you get this up and running? What was successful for you? Because they've been doing it for a while now.
Superior is another good one.
Okay. Do you know, Michelle, or you guys, do you know like how other townships have operated their programs?
Preservation.
Well, I don't know that, I mean, I'm not, that, I don't know that knowing that would answer my question. Because my question is, what is the timing of the use of those general fund dollars, and what is the?
No, I see,
what is the right, you know, when should we actually set aside? So
I totally agree with what you're
So you
saying.
make the policy decision to appropriate these funds, and then the question is, what year do we want to appropriate them?
But no, I guess, I'm sorry, Gretchen, because I'm not saying, in order for you to like appease Laura's question and, you know, because I think what her worry and concern is that, you know, we're taking this money away and then, because this is the kind of program that you need to have certain funds available in order to move on properties. Is that what you're trying to say?
when it comes, when they
And if
come
it's
up.
not there, and if we're,
Well, and
you know.
it was already decided.
There's
This
a way
money
we
was
can just put it in
allocated.
the fund balance as a
That's
reserve.
what I was thinking, that's
you
what,
know.
that was my thinking, was that we could put it in the fund balance as a reserve.
Yeah.
And then but not appropriate it until the need arises.
So it doesn't get lost.
Yeah, that was the thought.
But at the same time, I mean, I think, you know, we can do put some numbers together, and I mean, I think that is a good request, and maybe even needs to be in the rules of the committee, because it is, you know, tax dollars that it's
What I
used
think
in.
too.
Yeah.
And we're
It's
supplementing.
not clear, you know, how everything, you know, it's new, so I think we want
And
to.
using general fund dollars
More thoughtful.
to launch it, we already launched it, and the
Yeah.
millage has been approved. So now that justification for that appropriation, is no longer a valid justification. We need a justification that's based on what we think the future expenses are going to be, I think.
But again, I'm coming back to like, how are these other programs functioning successfully? And I think that is a good question to ask, because how, you know, I mean, they're doing it somehow, you know, what should we be doing, you know, in order to be available and ready for these preservation properties that come up, but also being responsible with tax dollars. And that's all I was saying. I think it's a good idea to reach out to other existing programs and ask them
To see if they are using general fund money,
Correct.
because we do have a millage now that.
And also staying within the law.
Well, I already talked to him about.
Well,
doing a monthly
and the
month
total
for everyone.
expenditures
But the
year to
thing
date
is that this
from
is common.
the open space fund has only been $14,000. And you're forecasting $225,000 in revenue from the.
Well, it's because it's the nature of the way
No, I
the process works.
Yeah,
is
I
that
understand.
you
Yeah, I think it's
have the
very
resources in order to apply
yeah.
for grants.
Yeah.
So, like that.
And I don't understand what a fund balance as a reserve is, so I,
Escrow.
It just
Yeah.
means that it's sitting there and available to you when you need it, rather than being actually transferred to you, you know. And so,
And then you come and justify why you need it.
yeah.
Can I suggest that I just don't want to get in the habit of, we have streamlined our meetings, because we have often ended up here past 9 o'clock. And we are in the report section, and I would just like to recommend that if there are these items that are big, that we add them to discussion, instead of just the report, so that we have time and that our minutes accurately reflect that we're talking about them, as opposed to just the reports that show up at the end of the agenda.
And honestly, I didn't really intend to discuss them, just more to, I want to put them on next month's agenda as discussion items, so I wanted to sort of, to give you a heads up that these were coming up.
No problem.
But,
I just want to move us forward.
yeah.
I think we have
You
several
guys-
items coming toward, at the discussion at the end that we've moved down to number 10, so I just want to make sure that we have time for that as well.
So did either of you want to say anything about your reports before we move on?
No, I really didn't. I mean, I had my basic report this month.
Okay.
Yeah, so, I mean, unless anybody has any questions about my report, then no. I don't have any comments.
I was just going to remind everyone this Saturday, the 23rd, 11 a.m. Going to have an elections coffee chat hour, hopefully, maybe two. The agenda will be elections, proposal 2, information about early 9-day voting, and the importance of being an election worker.
So with that, we'll do another call for public comment on non-agenda items.
I did have that one comment that I wanted to talk about that was within the consent agenda. I did have, I had a discussion with a resident. Can I do this?
Well, we're doing our other issues, comments, and concerns of board
Oh,
members
I'm
and staff.
sorry,
at
this is
the-
another public, okay, my
So
bad.
the call for public comment is first, and then
Yeah,
other
sorry.
issues, comments.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry, Karen.
that's okay. So any members of the public want to step forward and make a comment? Okay, so then hearing none. Maris, I'll start with
I'm
you.
not the public, I forget.
Well, I'll start with you
Okay.
on other issues, comments. and-
I have a discussion, just, it was a question about the VC3 contract. And I kind of, before the meeting, I discussed it with Michelle, and we kind of figured it out that, because they had concerns about the contract almost, doubling by the year 25, 26. And it seemed like a astronomical amount. But I just kind of I just wanted you to speak to it a little bit, just because, we're in public discussion and it's for the residents' question. I understand what's going on here, but I just was wondering if we could elaborate on it just a little bit more, just so they feel comfortable with the contract, and
Well-
that being,
Well, yes, okay.
Yeah.
I'll just make this really quick.
Yeah.
There's a 90-day cancellation
Yes.
provision, and because our IT contract expired several months ago, and I just found out about it 2 weeks ago, I know there's a lot of dissatisfaction with this vendor, and I'm going to be working on that.
Yeah.
And if I can't work it out, I'm just going to cancel the contract.
okay.
So,
Great.
that's
And
it
I
in a
just,
nutshell.
yeah, and I just wanted it to be publicly known that we do have that 90 days in case they miss
Well,
that.
and they
going
should
through the
know,
board
because
package.
if they're reading the agenda item, that's all explained in here.
Yeah.
But.
Nope,
yeah,
you're
yeah.
absolutely right, and I just wanted to, like I said, I mean, to know that, if a resident is coming, they're getting their questions in our meeting, and we're talking about it.
And I will say that I've heard from a lot of our board and committee members how unhappy they are with the service they're getting from
Yeah.
VC3. So it's they're asking for extraordinary cost increases at the same time
Horrible
as
service.
there's very bad, people are, I'm very unhappy with it myself, so. And I think pretty much everyone's unhappy with it.
It's our tech support, Laura.
Okay. Oh, the IT, okay.
That's all I had, though, but thank you for.
Lonnie?
I passed out a letter to the board, everyone should have a copy, addressed to the Michigan Public Service Commission members. We're in a public comment period right now. They've put forward a straw proposal to penalize and incentivize the utility companies for outages. The comment period goes until September 22nd. I've posted it publicly on Facebook as well, but I wanted to share the letter with the board. I did not have time to get it into the actual agenda for the board to take action, but wanted to share it here in case folks would like to comment. My concerns with the proposal as they proposed is that it includes incentives, which I am vehemently against, because why should we incentivize the companies to do the work that they're already paid by their customers to do? And I don't think that the penalties are strict enough. I also am encouraging the commission members to look towards Obamacare as an example of the ways that they could hold the companies accountable. For those of you who may not remember, when Obamacare was passed, the insurance companies were restricted to use only 80%, only 20% of the money that they brought in from premiums could go to anything other than healthcare. And I would love to see the same provisions put on our dollars for the public utilities so that they can only spend our money on providing services, not things like political spending and all of the other advertising and whitewashing of their terrible performance record that they spend so much money on. I encourage the board members as well as all of the public to submit comment. Again, it's due by September 22nd.
Lonnie,
Thank
can
you,
you,
Lonnie.
can you send a Word version of that in case, and if other members of the board want to write letters on their own behalf, signed as a trustee or as an elected official on our letterhead, you are empowered to do that.
Yeah, I can send it over and I can send the link. I did post the link as well on the Dexter Residence page on Facebook so that the public could have the link to submit comments.
You said it's September 22nd?
Yes.
Is that what you said?
Which is
Yeah, next
Friday, right?
Yeah, Friday.
This Friday.
Yeah,
Yeah.
3
Has
days.
somebody in our township experienced 24 outages in the past 14 months? Is that in our township?
It was someone who reported it. I have yet to be able to confirm that they were a township resident. That's why I said a community member, because I'm trying to get their actual address. But yes, they reported 24 outages in the past 14 months.
I just spoke with a resident, actually, when I was talking to you earlier before the board meeting about the outages, I had a resident come in tax time, paying taxes, and he said that he cannot completely rely, I mean, he's on Stinchfield Woods. Is it Stinchfield Woods?
Yes.
Yeah,
He's
okay,
written
so
to
that
me
must
as well.
be that, yeah. And I spoke to this gentleman face to face, and he says that he works from home, so for him, this is a huge issue, right? Because he's in the middle of a report, his power goes down frequently, and he's lost his work or what have you. I mean, this is a huge problem.
Yeah.
I want
Really, truly
to
is.
say that if it's the same resident that I talked to, he 3D prints
Yes,
prosthetics.
Yes, that's it.
And if it interrupts in the middle of a 3-day print, he has to start over.
Yeah,
Oh, my.
And they lose power in all types of weather.
that's exactly
It
who
is.
it is.
Even when the sun is
Can you facilitate him speaking to the Public Service Commission?
Yes, he has, and he has spoken with the utility and their response. His initial conversation with me was after a response from DTE that he was not super pleased with, which was shared with me as well.
Michelle? Anything?
No.
Gretchen?
Well, I do, not to, go on, but.
Let's not, but let's not beat a dead horse.
No,
but
no,
okay.
I don't want to do that, but I do think that, we need some follow-up with the neighborhood as soon as possible. And I think that the board, we need to learn if there's anything that we can do, I guess is one my thing. I mean, Maris was saying, our hands are tied. I don't know what the,
Well, no, I
the
wouldn't
plan,
say, can I just?
Yeah,
say-
sorry,
So
yeah.
the fact, so this is a case, I know something about it, which is that a tear down, a demolition order was issued, a few months ago, and then the person didn't comply. And so the neighbors got in touch with me a couple days ago, and I got in touch with Sinead, and we talked about writing a correction letter, and meanwhile, our zoning officer went out and visited the guy. And then now, this is progress. So what I couldn't say to them, but this is huge progress that he's torn down the house.
So that
And-
happened yesterday?
And that happened today, they said.
Today, okay.
And so this was a non-compliant person for many years who has a long history of litigation against municipalities, as I understand it. And so we were starting to explore, well, what are we going to do because we have a non-compliant person? It does look to me like the ball got dropped. And so the ball got dropped, a demolition order was issued, it was non-compliant, no follow-up, nothing happened. And then 2 days ago, a complaint to me because nothing happened. I sent the zoning person out, they looked at it, came back and started reporting to me, and so we were starting this process of initiating probably a fine, but now the person has torn down their house, so I feel like it's a little premature. Well, now we have to find out, okay, that somebody tears down their house, if they don't clean it up,
Right.
what's next? We have to look at the ordinance.
Yeah.
So I think that they came today, they were planning to come today because they were upset, and then something happened, that
Right.
changed the situation, but they're still upset, so they've got a lot of emotion that was built up over the 10 years when nothing was
Right, sure,
happening.
of course.
But now something's happening, so that's good, and when
I
I
just
talk.
don't want the ball to drop again.
It won't drop
Okay.
again. I mean, I won't drop the ball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't know that, though. That's what
Yeah,
all I'm saying. It's like, there's such a lack of trust, I think, that we kind of can go, overboard. And then,
Well, and I
just
said
also
this
think
in
it
that,
would help-
I said in that, there's a lot of things that we've frankly dropped the ball on, and that we're starting to check off the list. And that's why it's great that we have new planner and new zoning officer in place, and that's bringing to light a lot of stuff. And then also just residents. And I used an example in the report, this buoy that, they've been complaining about for years, and it finally went in, and I guess the neighbors all came out and applauded because it's finally happening. But that said, I can't fix everything. I mean, I can't fix everything.
I'm not saying that you can. I think communication is key, and
Well,
you know that because
I do know
that's
that.
what you do for a living.
And I am communicating with them, but I don't know that I'm communicating with this specific. I have people that have been in touch with, that have called. I have spoken to people in email.
So the reason that I know more about it is because we've been talking about doing this Half Moon Lake Association, and Glenbrook's would be part of it. So I know they have an association. So maybe they have an association newsletter or some way that we could put a little paragraph in there. And
Yeah, but I think we'll be relying on I hope that it's not going to be me that has to do this, and I hope that we'll have communications coming out of our planning department to the neighbors, because it's we have to be able to delegate some of this work, so.
And we do have the ability, if they don't, like when she was saying, it could go another, do we have the ability legally to do something if if the house stays sitting there that's now demolished?
It depends on a lot of things. It's often kind of a high bar that a government needs to meet in order to do something to somebody's property.
To go on to somebody's property.
And there are very good reasons for that. Generally, if there's, what would be defined as a nuisance or blight in an ordinance, generally the first thing that would happen would be a fine, or some kind of citation accompanied, with a fine from your zoning enforcement officer. I think that kind of moving beyond that to more dramatic remedies is a little bit more difficult. The ordinance, just kind of like lays out the fines that you can impose. One thing that the township might find useful is that you do have a provision in your ordinance that says for every day that a violation continues, it counts as an additional violation. So that's typical of blight ordinances, but basically it means that for every day that, the house is in, I haven't seen it, but in disrepair or whatever, that's counting as an additional violation, right? So by the end of the week, you violated it 7 times, not just once.
So if they've torn it down but not taken it away, it would still be a violation?
Well, we don't know.
I don't know,
We
but
haven't looked at this is a new situation, so we don't know if it's blight, if construction, we don't know if construction debris is blight, because we haven't looked at the ordinance yet, so we don't know how blight is.
And we don't know if they're going to have a truck come out tomorrow and carry away, all of the materials. So I think it sounds to me like
it's a moving target right now.
Very much
right,
so.
and requires
this was really shocking news that they've torn down the house, because it does sound like that house has been there for 10 years, and it's been, I was proceeding on the assumption that this was going to be a very difficult problem to get this guy to tear down the house, and now the house is torn down, so now we have to reassess the situation, and it's really like what I've, in my mind, because I'm a budget person, it's like a budget variance report. I have to look at the ordinance is the budget, and the reality is the variance, and we have to determine whether there's a variance. But it could be, if the zoning ordinance doesn't provide that construction debris is blight, we may not be empowered right now to do anything. And in that case, we might need to change the ordinance.
Oh, jeez, okay.
The only thing I would say, though, that for something like this, the board, even, and I'm not saying it has to be you, Karen, I think it should be the board communicating. So I don't want to rely on the staff to go deal with, I mean, that was clearly a number of residents who have a very valid concern that we, as their elected officials, must address. So I would say whether it be a volunteer from the board, I mean, it doesn't have to be everybody, and it certainly, you have a lot going on, so I understand that.
It shouldn't be, Karen.
Well, it is a
Well,
lot, I
maybe
mean, there's
all- I
just a
mean-
lot of stuff.
Yeah, so, but if they're, that should be, to me, those are the things that, like, we should be able to step in and help with going to talk to those folks or going to
But
their
we-
meeting or.
But we aren't the experts in the field,
Yeah, that's
such
the
as
problem.
the
That's
zoning officer,
right.
the attorney,
I mean,
and
we
the
can
planner.
go with the zoning officer to provide support or Robbie test, but I don't want our board members, I want our experts going and
Yeah.
helping people really understand the situation.
Right.
Not our elected
And
officials.
what our restraints are.
Well, but I think you can do both, and I think because there's an association, there's a body there that we could be building a relationship with, because clearly they've been very disappointed with their elected officials up
But
until
it's
now.
interesting, because I don't know that they've been in touch with, I think this is something that precedes our board. Because I don't think that this is something that this,
Well, I'm not saying that, I'm just
Yeah.
saying that's how they feel right
Yeah.
now, and we have a responsibility as their current elected officials to meet, talk to them and listen to them. They just want to know that we care and we're gonna do something, because that hasn't been their experience.
Yeah,
and
I
we-
just want the information before I say anything, you
Yeah,
know,
and
'cause
I think,
don't
of course,
know.
like, I'm not saying, I think it's really about listening.
and
And
I mean,
acknowledging.
For sure.
And it's
And
really
it-
awkward with a 3-minute public comment when that
Right.
one lady, I mean, she was shaking. I was just like, oh my God, we can't say anything because we have this meeting. Like, how do you? So anyhow, I already
Yeah.
said that. I'm not gonna do what you said earlier. Okay, I think we're in
yeah,
agreement.
and I mean, I have to say, we've talked a lot about that, and it was upsetting, it's hard to see somebody who's so unhappy, but we had a very dense package tonight, and we accomplished a lot.
Yeah.
I'm
And-
not saying, I
yeah,
think.
Yeah,
we did
yeah,
the right
so we did a good job tonight,
But addressing her was the right thing.
Yeah, and I think you
We're
should
working
all
through it.
feel comfortable speaking up and expressing compassion or an intention to follow up with people, if you feel moved to do that. And you did that, and I appreciated that, and, yeah,
Okay. Thank you.
yeah. Anything else?
Not for me. I think I've done enough for one night.
It's good.
It is.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
So,
Thank you.
do we
Karen.
have?
A lot of work
yeah.
in here tonight. That was like tremendous.
And I do want to, I'll just say one more thing, which is, I do feel like the last few months since I took office has been a lot of scrambling to catch up and take care of these, items that had been
Hanging
requested for
there.
a long time. I checked in with Sinead, and I think you agreed with me that this felt like this felt like a watershed month in the sense that there isn't anything now that I think you guys are still waiting for, that there's been no response from the executive team on. So we still have a couple of decisions to make, but I think that from now on, it's forward motion. I can't think of anything unless anybody else can. Is anybody waiting for something and has been waiting for something for
No.
years? Or
Just
is it
the
all-
residents.
Well, I mean, the residents, yeah. Well, the insurance is paid, right? Yeah.
So it's been a
Karen,
good
you've
wrap
done-
up. You've wrapped up the transition.
So now we
And
can,
now we can move forward.
and now we can move forward.
Yeah.
A little more forward.
Thank you. It
thinking.
seems like
Yeah.
it's an incredible amount of work.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, it has been for her.
And for all of you.
Yep, absolutely.
So
You've
it's
done a
good,
fantastic
it
job.
feels good. This was, I was hoping that this would feel like a feel-good meeting where we finally discharged this long queue of outstanding items that are now addressed, I think.
You've done awesome.
So, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
I will move to adjourn. Second it.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 I heard
three voices, who seconded?
Michelle made the motion and I seconded it.
No,
No,
Harris made
Harris
the
made
motion.
Michelle
I
seconded
support.
it.
Oh, and I thirded it.
Yeah.
And so did Lonnie.
And
No, I just said, I just voted. I just voted.
I also,
3 seconds.
I also have to say that it has only been 2.5 hours.
Yeah, I can't believe it. To be quite honest with you, I feel like it's been 5. No lie.
Tonight?
Yes. I feel pretty. And I really cannot believe it's only 8:30.
Karen,
Yeah.
you need a vote.
We had a vote. We said, I said all those
Everybody
in
said
favor,
aye.
and everybody said aye.
All ayes, okay.
Like I'm being emotional. It's weird. Like,
Oh, really? Yeah, because
gosh, this looks great.
it feels like a watershed in a way to me. It was like, wow,